We start the show today asking the question, why can't we all just get along? Why don't we all make each other feel welcome?
Kumbaya.
And wanted, right? That's the question. Look, I know that Clemson and South Carolina fans and Clemson fans don't agree on anything other than the fact that maybe Georgia sucks. But, I mean, why do South Carolina fans so badly want to keep Clemson out of the SEC?
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
We've asked that question, feels like about 100 times on this station before. Welcome into Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate. We've asked that question several times and brought up the topic, of course, many times in many different ways.
Yeah.
About Clemson maybe, possibly one day entering the SEC conference. Seems logical, seems a geographic fit, right? It makes all the sense in the world if you're a logical football fan. And if you're indoctrinated to the point where you say, well, we don't need any more representation in the state of South Carolina. We already have the state of South Carolina with the Gamecocks. First of all, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You have part of the state of South Carolina. You don't have the whole state of South Carolina. You got part of, a sizable part of, but not all of. You could have more, right? So the question is, why not, South Carolina fans?
Diesel.
Yeah.
You know why?
Because they hate each other.
Well, yeah, but the reason is South Carolina fans won't be able to say, hey,
yeah,
your conference sucks, right?
Yeah.
You play in a terrible ACC. I mean, I think a lot of it has to really.
Don't bear the lead. We're going to do a pros and cons here from the South Carolina Gamecock fan perspective.
Sure.
Of why you would and why you wouldn't want Clemson in the league. But I do want to let you continue that thought.
Well, what were you saying? Don't what?
Don't bury the lead.
So I'm confused.
Don't jump the shark. Don't jump ahead.
I hadn't read anything. I hadn't read a single thing yet.
Well, therein explains the problem.
I haven't read anything yet on the rundown. I was just so do you want me to tell you why I think they don't want to marry me? Wait.
I want you to hold on to that thought. Okay. Because you and I'm pretty sure, went down the same mental neural pathways just at different times of the day. Okay. So I want to get – first I want to invite you, South Carolina Gamecock Tolos who are listening, to start texting into the show. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. You can call us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. Or you Tolos who are watching on the stream can just drop a comment on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. But I put up a poll, Cole. It's unscientific, right? It matters when you do it, the snapshot, how everybody's feeling this time of day, this time of the month, this time of the year, right? Asking South Carolina Gamecock fans, do you want to keep Clemson out of the SEC? The question more specifically is, would you be for or against Clemson joining the SEC, pretending for a moment that there was an invitation? And poll's only been up for like 2 hours. 34% say they are against. So that is a sizable chunk. It's shocking to me that the number is that low, actually, because in times that we brought this conversation up in the past on the Fan Upstate, it's been like 80-20. 80% say hell no. Hell no do we ever want Clemson in our conference. But it seems as if, number one, it's possible if you believe that we're going to this two super league situation at some point, or you could let them get away and let the Big Ten have them, which I think is a worse situation. If we start, like, if there are no more lines and we're just like blurring and cherry picking this team to come to this conference, that team goes to that conference, when it doesn't make any geographic sense, I think ultimately it's going to hurt you. Remember what built the SEC, what builds conferences, what builds rivalry is familiarity and contempt. Well, you have no familiarity when it's a team from all the way across the country, right? Like we've talked about Rutgers playing Southern Cal. There's no familiarity there. There's going to be no heat in that rivalry whatsoever. But there's possible heat between Penn State and Maryland There would be heat between Penn State and Pitt because they're right there on top of each other. Instant heat. So I want to look at this from a South Carolina Gamecock fan perspective. From a fan perspective, the pros and cons of why you may or may not want Clemson to join the SEC. We'll go straight to the stream. Thomas Figura says the SEC doesn't want Clemson. Okay, Paul Feinbaum. They're ACC for life. Nobody but the ACC wants them. Well, there you go. That's typical Gamecock hate. And I appreciate you, Thomas. I appreciate you coming in hot with that Gamecock hate. But the brand is worth a lot of money. South Carolina's brand is worth a lot of money. Let's just say for a moment that the ACC was the power brand, not the SEC. I mean, it would make sense for the ACC to want South Carolina because it's a powerful brand. Madcraft says also South Carolina makes more money from the SEC than Clemson does the ACC. Not sure that it's working, but it should be an advantage. Well, you would think, Madcraft, it should be an advantage specifically over Clemson, but not over the league because everybody in the league is making that kind of money. I mean, ultimately, you still have to go win the games, right? You still have to win the recruiting battles. You have to win the games. Money doesn't necessarily buy those wins. So, Cole, let's look at this first, the pros from a South Carolina Gamecock perspective of Clemson joining the SEC. So I want to get to your thoughts here first. Why would it be a good idea from a Gamecock fan's perspective to have Clemson with them in the SEC?
There's no benefits of it from a South Carolina perspective.
None?
Zero.
I don't think you're thinking hard enough on this.
I don't think there's any benefit from a South Carolina fan. Now, you mean you're asking why should South Carolina fans want them in the SEC?
Yeah. I've got 4 right here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So number 1, the game stakes are now higher. Possible, not probable, not immediate, but it's possible that conference title implications are on the line in this game, right? Let's just say that Clemson comes in and they're pretty good right out of the gate. South Carolina, end of the season, assuming that game stays where it does, you have the possibility of knocking them out of the SEC championship game or knocking them out of playoff contention, which you already have, but it's even more amplified when it's in conference.
Yeah, I guess my only pushback there would be if it was the other way around. If it was South Carolina joining the ACC, I could see that. I just don't see anytime soon South Carolina actually being good enough. Sorry to be negative Nelly here. I don't see them being good enough to actually have games that are at stake. And I hear you in terms of it could set you back a game or two in the SEC. I just don't know that neither one of the teams really. I don't know that either Clemson or South Carolina in the SEC would be good enough. Maybe Clemson would. And obviously, that's an argument we've had several times about Clemson in the SEC. But, could South Carolina actually be good enough, I guess, for those games to mean more? Because if Carolina sucks, those games don't mean anymore. But if they're good, to your point, they would.
I think it also amplifies the bragging rights being in the same conference because it just adds that little something extra, right? I'm not saying that it overhauls, revolutionizes. That's not a word, but I'm not saying that it completely changes the bragging rights, but I think it amps those bragging rights up just a little bit more. I think it, like you brought up earlier, it removes Clemson's weak ACC strength of schedule. So if you're a Gamecock fan, you would love to see Clemson in the SEC because guess what? At least in your opinion, you're going to see them struggle. You're going to see them lose more. You might see them get left out of the college football playoff by not having a schedule that they can walk through most years, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably, if I have to say South Carolina fans could find one reason, that's probably, in my opinion, the only reason I could see. I can see that point. Them being able to say, South Carolina fans being able to say, look, you don't have the ACC strength of schedule. Now you're in a real conference. Now you're not going to win. I think that's a valid point.
Okay, let's look at things from the con side, the negative things for South Carolina fans if Clemson joined the SEC. Number one, Clemson would get more money from the SEC TV contract than they're getting right now from the ACC. And fans love to brag about that kind of stuff, right? They love to say, oh, guess what? We get $60 million a year from our TV contracts. You only get 25. Like you ever see any of that money, which that to me is one of those ass backwards arguments. Let's brag about money that I never actually get to see. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. So you would see Clemson get a pay raise by being in the SEC. Who knows what the terms might be, right? You know, we've seen it was SMU come into the ACC without taking any money. We've seen some schools making their way into the Big Ten, getting a partial share, but we don't know that. So let's just pretend for a moment that you're getting a full share if you're Clemson. Okay. Point number 2, a con for South Carolina if Clemson joined the SEC. What if they came in with their hair on fire and they succeeded? And then your narrative of them only being good because they played in a cupcake conference is killed forever. You can never get to brag about that ever again, right? They can say, guess what? You thought we were weak. We walked in and we ran roughshod over this league.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. My only thing with that is if fans are being realistic already, Clemson's already proven that. Clemson's already proven that they can compete with the SEC,
but not to South Carolina fans.
When
they will never believe that.
Yeah, but when you go, run roughshod on Alabama in the national title game, that should be enough. I'm not saying, listen, I know the grind of the SEC schedule is different. I get that. I'm not oblivious to the ACC being a lot easier. However, when Clemson was at their best, they could compete with the SEC. But it's going to take them being at their best. And right now, I don't think they could.
I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I remember I pulled last week, I think, the average margin of victory for every national champion over the past 10 years, I think. And Clemson 2018 was the largest margin of victory of any national average margin of victory of any national champion. So you could say it's because they were in the weak ACC, but they were kicking everyone's ass big time. Not just winning, not winning by 7 or 10. They were winning by 30, 35 average week in and week out. So it also, Cole, a con for South Carolina Gamecock fans if Clemson joined the SEC. It would eliminate that air of we're better than you because we're in a better conference. South Carolina fans love hanging their hats on that. That's a big part of your identity, right? That's a big part of every SEC team's identity. I'm not saying it as a dig to South Carolina fans. That's part of it just means more, right? So you wouldn't be able to have that and hold that over Clemson fans' heads anymore, ever again. Clemson's general prestige would increase on a national scale. I'm talking about the way that fans in California, in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Texas feel about Clemson would increase because now you're in a better conference. And then possibly you would gain more access to the college football playoff because as this playoff expands to 12 and eventually to 14, it's expected or predicted that the SEC could get in 3 to 5 teams per year. So instead of essentially having to go out and win the ACC, you now just need to be top 5 in the SEC to get into this thing.
Yeah. From the Clemson standpoint, I think big picture joining the SEC would be better. I just don't know that it would be as easy. It's easy for us to say, well, it'd be easier for them to compete here and compete there. I think there would be a learning curve. I really do.
Oh, sure.
I think big picture it'd be better. But I think in the first 5 to 10 years, there would be a massive learning curve for Clemson joining the SEC. I'd still encourage it. I still think it'd be better for them and for the conference if Clemson was in that conference. But I don't know that Clemson fans, they think that they could come in there and just all of a sudden compete for the conference. I don't know that happened.
If, just for the sake of argument, if Clemson was joining the SEC this year with Texas and Oklahoma, how would you rank those 3 in their readiness to join the conference? I would go Texas 1. Ability to step in year number 1 and perform well. I'm not saying go out and win the conference in year 1. That's too high of a bar. But to go and perform and win 8 or 9 games, I'm saying Texas 1. Oh, man. Clemson 2, Oklahoma 3.
I think Clemson,
but that's a real tight margin between 2 and 3.
No, it is. I think Clemson would actually be pretty equal to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I think Texas this year, I'm not saying for the next 5 or 6, I think Texas this year, Diesel, will be able to compete immediately. I think Texas this year can win the conference.
Oh, they're monsters.
Yeah, I think they can win the SEC this year, right? I just don't know that if Clemson and Oklahoma were both entering the conference this year, I don't know that either one of those would even be able to really hold a candle. I think it'd take both. I would probably, to your point, probably put them both at, probably on the same playing field. If I had to pick, I'd go probably Oklahoma 2, Clemson 3.
Texter brings up a good point. He says, too many Tigers already. We already got Auburn, LSU, and Missouri. Clemson, you might have to change your mascot if you're joining.
Auburn. Who was the other ones?
LSU,
Missouri. So Clemson would be the fourth Tiger. Gosh.
Remember last week we were talking about the, I think it was the American Athletic. It's either the American Athletic or Conference USA now has 4 owls.
Yeah. Only if the higher-ups in the SEC actually cared about the mascots, when they put Clemson in there one day, which I think Clemson will be, only if they really sat down and said, look, we can't put Clemson in here because they're a Tiger, right? Because that conversation never happens. But I think it'd be good long-term. I think it's going to happen. I really do. I think it'll be Clemson and FSU both at the same time. But, South Carolina fans, they could say, welcome to the SEC. And that argument, that con from a Gamecock perspective of a Clemson joining the SEC, that con could quickly turn because, Clemson, it'd be a pro at first, in my opinion. I think, like I said, Clemson would have to adjust, but I think that con could quickly turn. And if all of a sudden Clemson starts competing at the high level, man, South Carolina fans are going to be sitting on their hands,
Man, if there's one narrative that I could strike from sports fans' minds, I know what yours would be. It would be all the lazy LeBron takes, right? You would want to strike that immediately. But I would love to strike the markets strategy narrative among SEC fans, because right now with South Carolina, the SEC gets about 40% of the state of South Carolina at best. I'm not saying 50-50 because the state is clearly not just 50% Clemson fans, 50% South Carolina fans. I'd say it's probably 30% South Carolina fans, 40% Clemson fans, and the other 30% are split among fractured off to a bunch of different teams, right?
Yeah.
So, and there are people I'm sure who know this, who have researched this. You got 30%, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got 30% of the market right now just having South Carolina. You could have 70% of the market if you added Clemson. It's, to me, it's not about market penetration. And that's where people say, oh, go get North Carolina, go get Virginia, because it gives you a foothold in those states. That's fine. You get now a portion of Virginia. You get a small portion of North Carolina. But I say, wouldn't it be better to own most, if not all, of South Carolina? To own a larger chunk of the viewers in the state of Florida?
You would think, but, South Carolina fans don't think that way. South Carolina fans
network execs don't think that way.
Well,
and that's the problem.
I think South Carolina would be better off as a state. Now, I think Clemson would have a lot more of a market than South Carolina fans would admit. Now, if South Carolina fans are upset about that, I guess the simple answer would be, start winning. Because you can talk about markets all you want and, how much of a market South Carolina, the Gamecocks have in the state, but we all know good and well how you perform has a little bit, helps a little bit.
That is, unless as far as the executives are concerned, by having South Carolina, they already get a portion of Clemson fans who are going to watch South Carolina games just to see what happens. I remember turning on ESPN a couple of years ago, and they were filming inside of a cockaboose in Columbia, and they had the Clemson game on TV in the cockaboose.
Yeah.
So maybe they're feeling like by having one team, we're already getting a portion of their viewers to watch the other team. We don't need to actually bring them into our conference to get those people.
Could be. Could be. All right, coming up next, we're going to get to some news that broke earlier today. David Hood, who's coming on the program at 4:20, he broke some news earlier today about the ACC and ESPN requesting that Clemson move its home game against South Carolina to Friday night for a Black Friday contest. If you haven't heard about this, stay tuned. We'll talk about it next.
Your StreamYard mark? It says that. Hey, Tolos on the stream, can you hear us? Tolos on the stream, can you hear us? We're testing something out here. Tolos on the stream, can you hear us?
I didn't mute you. Oh. Was it muted the whole time?
I have no idea. I mean, we had people commenting, so it must not have been.
And it's unmuted now.
Yeah. That's what we need to find out. Madcraft, can you hear us?
Madcraft, can you hear me? Anybody on the stream? I guess I can pull it up. Bob says he can hear us. Okay, so it's
okay. Bob can hear us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
So go ahead.
Test.
Earlier today, a little bit of news broke on David Hood, again, who I told you a minute ago. If you weren't listening, I'll remind you again. David Hood will join us in 1 hour from now to talk about this news. But earlier today, we found out that South Carolina Clemson 2024 could have been on Black Friday. Yeah, that's right. David Hood put out an article. The headline was, the ACC and ESPN requested that Clemson move its home game against South Carolina for a Friday night Black Friday contest. Get your thoughts in 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, maybe you like what Clemson did. Clemson University refused a request by the Atlantic Coast Conference and ESPN to move this year's home game against South Carolina to Black Friday, or the Egg Bowl used to be. Court documents obtained by TigerNet pertaining to the school's lawsuit against the conference in an effort to break the grant of rights revealed that the conference and ESPN made the request. The article goes on to talk about the conference asking Clemson to move the game to a Friday night primetime. The rivalry game was played on Thursdays until 1959, David says. So a lot of history between these two, but the league said that despite having secured these concessions and despite other ACC teams having agreed to play on Black Friday in previous instances, for example, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Clemson declined to move the game.
A lot of history in that Notre Dame, North Carolina rivalry?
Not that I know of.
The Wine and Cheese Bowl?
Yeah, N versus N. UNC versus ND. That's about all the history I can think of. In an email from the ACC to Clemson Athletic Director Graham Neff, Michael Strickland, the Senior Associate Commissioner for Football, wrote, as has been indicated to you during this process, the conference office is disappointed in Clemson University's lack of cooperation on this matter. As all ACC members know, it is incumbent upon the ACC and its institutions to work in good faith with ESPN on football scheduling issues. This cooperation maximizes the value of our relationship with other media partners and strengthens the collective future. Clemson's decision not to do so in this instance is harmful towards that goal, says Michael Strickland.
At what point in that statement did you say it's mandated that they do whatever ESPN tells them to do?
It's not, right? And
right?
That's the hard part of it.
Right? It's a request. Man. Requests don't automatically have to be fulfilled. The ACC is acting like they do. I mean, we all know that ESPN is the teat at which all sports suckle.
Yeah.
That's where the money comes from. That's where you're getting paid. That's how we all get to eat tonight.
So this is wild. Like, this is absolutely crazy that they wanted to move this game. And I know you and I both have thoughts on it, and I want to hear the Tolo's thoughts as well. Phone lines are open, 844-FAN-PHONE. But Diesel, like, I don't know, someone who's grown up a Clemson fan, I don't know that I'm opposed to this. I don't know that I would hate seeing these two teams on prime time, on Black Friday. Obviously, I've had a little bit of time to think about it. My opinion's changed a few times. I just think it's interesting that Clemson, for whatever reason, said no. There must be more reasoning. I'm not opposed to seeing this game on Black Friday, though, like a lot of Clemson fans.
What I love about this, Cole, is it kind of stays right there in line with Dabo's conservative viewpoints on the portal and NIL, and saying, you know what, we have a historic date where we play this game.
Yeah,
we're not moving it. We're not changing it. You know, there are some things, I know to a lot of people, nothing is sacred anymore, but there are some things that should be treated as if they're sacred, dates on which certain events happen. I mean, think about, was it Christmas Day when they do, don't the Cowboys always play the Eagles on Christmas Day? Or the Giants, they rotate between one or two opponents on
Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Cowboys.
Thanksgiving,
okay. Yeah, they have a history of Thanksgiving.
So imagine that just gets blown up because ESPN asked you to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Cowboys fan, that is part of your tradition. It's what you do every Thanksgiving is you watch those matchups. You watch your team play. So I commend Clemson for telling ESPN to go pound sand on this.
I see both sides. I do agree with you. I commend them as well for sticking with what they believe to be the best date. It does throw off a lot of like that's a big game, right? Like that's a big game to both fan bases, and it throws off people who are used to having that game on that Saturday. I'm sure a lot of people plan around it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving being on Thursday, and then Friday you have a day to get ready. Maybe would the attendance be different? That's fascinating. Maybe not. I think it would be more, in my opinion, on Saturday. But it's crazy. I would love. I hope this continues. I hope this saga continues because this is nuts.
So I'm of the firm belief that schools should have the right to refuse scheduling requests if it benefits the fans who actually attend. Right, like ESPN, all they want to do, ESPN isn't requesting to move this game because they feel like they're going to get some big boost in ratings. ESPN is only doing it to fill a time slot, and they think, okay, well, the Clemson South Carolina game would give us more viewers than, maybe not the Egg Bowl, but I'm just thinking like a random matchup that would happen on that weekend. I mean, I've watched ESPN absolutely murder the attendance of MAC games.
Yeah.
So
put them in the middle of the week, you mean?
Middle of the week.
Yeah.
So I got some numbers on this for you. 2023, Akron averaged 7,200 fans at their games. That's down 35% from the year before. Ball State averaged 10,000 fans. That's down 7%. Buffalo's attendance down 15%. Kent State down 28%. A couple of schools saw little increases, but when you look at the total number, like what their average attendance is versus their capacity of their stadiums, they're sitting at like 50, 60%. So that ain't much. That ain't much to sneeze at here. So, I think fans in the stands really matters.
It does
to these schools, and it really matters to the fans who now say, well, I can't go if it's on a Thursday night. I can't get down there. I've got this, I've got that. So, I mean, again, I say it 100 times. I commend Clemson for saying no. This is when we play this game. You are not changing it. F off.
Spur Daddy on the stream says, I think it's quite hilarious that Clemson gave them the big foam finger on trying to tell them what to do. Bob on the stream says, hey guys, most likely the reason they did not do that because that is a big night for high school teams in South Carolina, upper state, lower state championships to determine who plays in the state championship the first Friday. Good point,
Bob. Right? I don't think Clemson does anything considering how it's going to affect high school leagues around here.
You don't think?
No, they're operating on a completely different wavelength. And I'll let you grab this.
Daniel High School, man.
Yeah, maybe if Dabo's son is playing for the team, but I genuinely, they're not. And does the NFL really give a rip what their decisions or how their decisions affect college football? No. So I highly doubt very many, if any,
I don't think
NCAA teams really care how their scheduling decisions affect high school football in their region.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big determining factor by any means. Could it be part of it? Maybe, but it's quite interesting. Let's go to the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. You can get in touch with us there. 844-326-3663 is the way that you can find us. Bob wants to chime in. What's up, Bob?
Hey, man, that's me talking about the high school football is the reason that Clemson probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, Bob.
In South Carolina. And listen, man, when you go to a high school football game on Friday night, those are all those games on that particular Friday night, or whether you go to state championship or not. So, those places are packed out. So you're going to make people decide whether they're going to go to their local high school football game or to the Clemson Carolina game. You see what I'm saying? That's why I say it'll be a conflict.
No, I'm with you. And Diesel. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, I know high school football is not as important as college, or maybe some folks wouldn't think it would be as important as college, but there's a lot of people that, would think that it would be. And now also, it keeps there from being a conflict between the two of who's going to draw the people.
I mean, you make a valid point there, Bob. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that that high school football is less important or more important, or college football is more important. I'm just saying the higher ups don't let that affect their decisions.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Well, when you look at putting 25 or 30,000 people in stadiums for high school football games, it's going to hurt your bottom line at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think colleges are probably more likely to say, I think we'll get those fans, and the high school stadiums will be empty.
That won't happen, man.
South Carolina. Fair. Appreciate the call,
That's
Bob.
I do wonder, are they doing that across the state of Texas? I mean, are there going to be Texas college football games that are being asked to move? Because, well, Texas high school football in Texas and Alabama and Georgia and Florida, it's just as important, if not more important, than it is here. So, you know, I don't know if Bob, if he's on the right track there, saying that, you know, high school football games across the state are going to pull 20, 30, 40,000 people away from a Clemson game. I'm not sure that you're right there. Some, but I don't think it's the number that you think it is.
I don't know that it would be, like I said, I don't know that it'd be the reason. I don't know it'd be the number one factor. Does it play a part? Sure. Maybe it does play a part, right? Maybe it plays a small part in it. But I think, and again, I'd love to ask the decision maker. I don't know if the decision maker was Graham Neff. I don't know if it was Dabo who said no. I don't know who had the final say here, but man, I'd love to hear the reasoning, because I get it. Like, I understand why you don't want to move it. However, Diesel, what if this game had been going on Friday, just like the Egg Bowl had? What if your team was in prime time and that was the only game people watched, right? Like the Egg Bowl being in prime time, I would think provided some recruiting benefits for those two schools, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. There was no competition. Everybody watched. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it should happen, but man, you'd be the only game on.
I am of the firm belief, Cole, that everything ESPN and the networks have asked these schools to do has eroded the fan experience to the point now where there's a considerable amount of people who they don't even think about going to games anymore.
No, I
just sit and watch it on TV because it's easier and it's cheaper. When they used to have this, I think you're with me on this when I say that college football is built on emotion. Your emotional connection to the school that you went to, the school near where you grew up, or the school that your kids go to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you start taking away all those things, all the traditions upon which this sport is built, taking games away from Saturdays and moving them to Fridays, and then moving them to Thursdays and playing some on Wednesdays. How about Tuesdays? Why not a Monday night game? Whatever, man. Day of the week doesn't matter anymore. I'm a creature of habit, right? Yeah. I love the fact that college football, a vast majority of the game is played on Saturday, because it leads me up all week to my Saturday, and that's what I do. That is my ritual. Week in and week out. I watch football on TV. I go to some games. But if you start futzing around with that, if you start changing it, then it becomes hockey. And I say to myself, man, I don't watch enough hockey games because I don't know what night of the week they play. Sometimes it's a Monday, sometimes it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It could be any night of the week that they play. And all of a sudden, it takes away the ritual in my mind of Saturday college football.
You know, what I find so fascinating is the manner that Michael Strickland, who, by the way, is the ACC Senior Associate Commissioner for football, I find it so fascinating that he is firm with the letter that he wrote, you know, talking about it maximizes the value of the relationship with ESPN, and the ACC, the conference office, is now disappointed in Clemson's lack of cooperation. Like, that's some strong words, right? It's incumbent upon the ACC and its institutions to work in good faith with ESPN. To your point that you said 15 minutes ago, working in good faith, that's one thing, but agreeing to move games, that's another. Like, where does it say you have to agree to move games? I think Clemson made the right decision.
Number one, I believe the more adjectives you have to add to your job title, the less important you actually are.
Michael.
Yeah.
Old Michael. Old
He's
Big
got
Mike.
It's like you know, white girls ordering at Starbucks. If it takes a paragraph to read off your order, that's a pain in the ass, right? And it's not very good drink anymore. So, you know, what was he, the senior associate assistant to the executive to the traveling ACC vice commissioner.
Michael Strickland, according to the ACC website, is the ACC's senior associate commissioner for football. Football, not football.
Where's Jim Phillips? Where's Jim Phillips coming out and saying this?
This is the fall guy. Jim's like,
yeah.
hey, you say this. I'm not going to send an email.
Yeah.
It's your job.
I mean, does this also not – I wonder how much of this is involved with the Clemson and Florida State's lawsuits saying that you failed to keep our revenue up.
I love it. I love the beef between Clemson and the ACC.
Why would I agree to change a game off of a traditional date for you to help you make money when I'm suing you for not helping me make more money?
No, that's true. That could be part of it. I want to see, just for the ratings, just for the smoke, the fire, I want to see this all end with Clemson and the ACC in the worst way possible. I want to see blow-ups, tons of backlash, lawsuits. I want to see it get nasty.
I'm going to spend the break seeing if I can bird dog this little stat down. What was the 2023 Egg Bowl ratings and compare that to the 2023 South Carolina Clemson ratings.
Good question.
And then the answer would be, is it worth Clemson's while to even bother moving this thing? Do they believe that they'll get more eyeballs on their game or not? Hey, when we come back, we are going to dive into our summer poll. We have a structure built, and we're going to start taking your recommendations, your nominations to be in this bracket. That's coming up next right here on the Fan Upstate. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere you are on the free Odyssey app. Stream us live right there. Also use the rewind function. You can jump right back to a segment that you missed. Maybe you caught the tail end of the segment. You want to go back and see how the whole thing started. Well, you can do that on the free Odyssey app. If you're listening after the fact on any one of our podcast platforms, we appreciate you no matter how you listen to the show. We had Tolo Bob messaging in earlier on the stream asking about the phone number. It's 844-326-3663. Bob, I think, is relatively new. I don't think we've ever had Bob call into the show before. So welcome.
I think today was the first time.
Yeah, welcome, new Tolo Bob. I don't know if you've been around for a while and you just called in for the first time, or if you've just found the show.
We're getting a lot of new faces.
Heck, yeah, we are.
A lot of new faces. We appreciate each and every one of them.
You know, as we get into the summertime here, Cole, it is talking season, right? There's not a lot of sports going on. We think that they should adjust the sports calendar to give us something to talk about this time of year, but that is far, 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 far above our pay grade.
Or vacation.
So we do every summer, Cole, we like to do a fan bracket, like a challenge, if you will. And we put it up to the Tolos over the past couple of days, asking what they want us to decide ultimately with our bracket challenge. And we got some really, really good suggestions over the past couple of days, Cole. The problem is when we put up the poll to ask what should be the main focus of our poll, they were all relatively even. I mean, we asked for their favorite, should it be favorite destination, like your favorite spot to go to if you're in the upstate? Well, that got almost 20% of the vote. Your favorite mom and pop restaurant to go to, 36% of the vote. Which is the best downtown? 36% of the vote. So right there, that's 91% of the vote with just 3 options. So it'd be real difficult. And a lot of people would be real disappointed if we picked one of these and not the other ones, because their choices would be left out. So why don't we just do this, Cole? Why don't we just mash them all together? Mash them all together in one big bracket challenge and let the Tolos decide what's ultimately the best. So we're going to do that. We're going to take those 3, and sorry to the Tolos that suggested your favorite sports documentary, that got less than 10% of the vote. So sorry, that one's getting the big ugly axe. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine your favorite destination, your favorite mom and pop joint, and the best overall downtown into one category. And we're going to sort of section it off, right? And we want your suggestions. So today on the show, we want your nominations for your favorite downtown area in the upstate. I mean, we're talking the whole downtown. We're not talking like one street corner. We're not talking about a park. We're talking about your favorite overall downtown. So Tolos, start hitting us with your suggestions. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Tell us which ones we have to put on the list.
So then the winner of each 4 brackets will all face off for the winner of the entire thing. Is that right?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. So,
or there'll be 4 different winners.
We've got 3 very clear brackets and then one kind of wild card. We can either stick all the wild cards together in one spot, or like overflows, or we could creatively, mix them in.
Gotcha.
We can decide down the road how we want to handle that. So first of all, let's go favorite downtown. Tolos, what is your favorite downtown in the upstate? Can be a big downtown like Greenville, Spartanburg. Could be a small downtown like Greer or Simpsonville, or any one of the small towns that are starting to really pop up and flourish around here. So you tell us. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan.
We've been bombarded. I don't even know where our text line went.
Yeah, something's going on over on our sister station, WORD, because we're getting dozens and dozens of texts.
There's like 30 texts that all say the
McMaster.
Same. Yeah.
Man, how mad do you think they would be if we blocked these numbers?
Oh, they'd be mad. They'd be mad.
Yeah.
But we could do it. Sorry, Charlie. Favorite downtowns.
Your favorite downtown.
Spur Daddy says Greer. Stephen Webb says Greer, already coming in with some good suggestions on that.
Yeah, really kind of however many you guys nominate helps determine how big this bracket is going to be. It could be a 16 seed bracket, could be a 32. Probably not going to do a 64 seed bracket because that's huge.
Little big.
Probably going to cap this thing at 32. So we're really kind of looking for 8, your favorite 8 in each category.
All right, coming up next, we talked about it several weeks ago. Joey Chestnut doesn't need Nathan's, right? Well, guess what? If you haven't heard, Joey Chestnut will be doing a hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July. We'll talk about it, give you more information, your thoughts next. Well, if you thought Joey Chestnut was just going to sit at home on the 4th of July and watch ESPN and Nathan's, well, you're wrong. He's not. Joey Chestnut says, I don't need ESPN. I don't need Nathan's hot dogs. I'm going to go Mr. American and compete against who? That's right. U.S. soldiers.
Joey
4th
Chestnut,
of July hot dog
more
contest.
like Joey drop these nuts.
I love it. I like it, man. I was very
Oh,
disappointed when I heard this news, Diesel. And, I always watched that hot dog eating contest. But you know what? This makes it a little bit better. This makes it a little bit better for me. There was an article published by the New York Post that says competitive eater Joey Jaws Chestnut will take his hot dog talents to an Army base in Texas for America's Independence Day this year after a falling out, obviously, with Nathan's. Chestnut of Indiana will compete Diesel against soldiers in Fort Bliss in El Paso in a 5-minute hot dog eating contest. That's instead of the Nathan's 4th of July hot dog contest, as the article goes on to say. I love this, but do these guys have any shot here?
Here's what would be really great. If Joey Chestnut faced off against one representative from each branch of the military, and I still think he would win.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
One Army, one Navy, one Marine Corps, one Air Force. I mean, are we going to add a National Guard and Space Force?
Why not?
Space Force is a real thing. I don't know if you guys realize this.
Yeah.
This was a new branch of the military formed under President Trump, Space Force. It's not just a silly TV show, which that show is hilarious, by the way. Steve Carell.
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
Steve Carell was in it. He's like this like buttoned up general who gets tasked with starting Space Force. And everybody thinks it's a joke.
Yeah.
But he has to do it.
I need to watch that.
It's really funny. I think it had 2 seasons.
So Joey Chestnut in an interview on Thursday said he's been fasting on water, lemon juice, and liquefied calories as part of his pre-competition routine. What is a liquefied calorie? What is that? I have no idea.
Milkshakes, hot dog shakes.
Hot dog shakes. That sounds delicious. Hot dog, new cookout milkshake flavor, the chili dog. Oh, God. So, I mean, here's what's interesting. 15,000 people, Diesel, mostly soldiers and their families, are expected to attend this annual Pop Goes to Fort celebration at Fort Bliss. It's an annual thing that already goes on. It also includes fireworks, performances by the El Paso Symphony Orchestra, and the 1st Armored Division Band, according to Fort Bliss Welfare. Chestnut said he would do a practice routine Friday, but he's feeling pretty confident. He says if they each break 10, that would be pretty good. 10 hot dogs in 5 minutes. Obviously, Joey will crush them, but it's cool that he's doing this. I ask you, could you at least do the bare minimum that Joey says? And could you do 10 hot dogs in 5 minutes?
No, I wouldn't want to.
But if
that
you had
gross.
to, you don't think you could?
No, man. Like my stomach would be so full I couldn't breathe after 10 hot dogs. Come on,
5 minutes. I think we need to realize 5 minutes is longer than when. I mean, like if we said, okay, at 4:05, we're going to start the competition. It's 4:04:45 right now. So in 15 seconds, we're going to start it. You get till 4:10 to eat 10 hot dogs. I don't know that I could eat 10. Maybe 5. I think I could do 5.
So,
don't you think you could do 1 a minute?
According to Google, a standard hot dog weighs about 1/5 of a pound. So 10 hot dogs is 2 pounds. You're telling me you're going to eat 2 pounds of hot dogs?
Since we have to work Friday, is there any way we could put this to the test on the live stream?
I mean, I'll just eat 1 or 2.
I just think it's probably the stubborn part of me. I think I could do it. I think I could eat 5, and I think I could eat 10 in 5 minutes. 10 hot dogs in 5 minutes. I might be like bloated, but I think I could do it, man. I really do. Tolos, what do you think?
You go right ahead, man. My doctor already says that I have high cholesterol, so pass.
I mean, it's just bread and some wonderful meat, right?
It's not. It's questionable meat. You missed that word. Questionable meat.
You don't like the word wonderful there for the hot dog meat? Chestnut says he will do a practice routine on Friday. Ingest oils to make sure there's a clean highway. Little TMI. There won't be any traffic jams, says Joey Chestnut in his digestive system before heading to Fort Bliss. This is fantastic. Eating oils.
How long is the you gotta lube up the walls, I guess.
Ooh.
How long is the Nathan's hot dog? Is it also 5 minutes?
No, I think it's longer. Let me look.
What if he went out there and just spanked whatever record they set at the Coney Island Nathan's event?
It's 10.
They get 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was 10, but so he's doing half the time, which, by the way, is still pretty impressive. I mean, if you cut his record in half, which his record is 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes. So if you go 76 divided by 2, you anticipate, I guess the over-under on Thursday's event at the Air Force Base would be set to 38 hot dogs for Joey Chestnut in 5 minutes. Oh. And by the way, you can bet on the Nathan's hot dogs.
So 38 divided by 5 branches of the military, just going back to my scenario there, that's 7.5 hot dogs each. Do you think each member representing their branch of the military, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard, do you think each one of them could hold up their end of the bargain and eat 7.6 hot dogs in 5 minutes?
No, I really don't. I say that I think I could eat 10 in 5, but it'd be so hard. Like with no practice, right? That's the hardest part. Joey Chestnut's been training, and I don't even like. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around how you train to be a competitive eater, because I eat a lot of food now.
Well, you consume a lot of oils to lube up your intestinal walls.
That's disgusting.
I mean, you used to think like all you had to do was just eat a bunch of hot dogs, right? Eat a bunch of hot dogs, throw them up, do it again, throw them up, do it again, throw it up, boom, compete. But no, there's a whole disgusting science to this.
I would if we since we have to work Friday, I will be willing to Diesel at least say I could do the 7.5. Is that the number you made it out?
7.5, yeah.
For the,
I'm not counting Space Force because that's not a real branch of the military.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be fascinating. I want to try it. I just don't know that we understand, like, you eat one and you're already getting full. I don't know that we understand how they, like, what I don't understand these food eating contests is how when you get full, because at some point these guys do get full, right? Where do you keep going? Where do you get that second win? Where do you find room to put the other 38 hot dogs?
So on Saturday, I went to a little girl's birthday party, and I had a hot dog and a brat. And a brat is basically 2 hot dogs,
better
right?
than a hot dog, by the way.
It's better than a hot dog, but I'm just trying to think volume-wise here.
Yeah, it's like 2.
So I essentially had 3 hot dogs at this thing.
Were you full?
Yeah, I was real full.
And how long did it take you to eat those?
I had cake, and I had other stuff too. How long? 5 minutes. I mean,
but you took your time, yeah.
Yeah, taking my time. Like, I wasn't rushing on this thing.
I don't know, then. I don't know. I say I could do it, but maybe I couldn't. So,
and you're asking me to more than triple what I just consumed? Get out of here.
It's good to see it, though. It's good. All right, let me ask you this: if it wasn't a hot dog eating contest, what food? And this question's for the Tolos as well. 71307. Start your text with the word "fan." What food do you think you would be best at if you had to do a contest with that food? Because I don't love hot dogs. I will eat hot dogs. I do not pick hot dogs to eat when I'm hungry. I never wake up and desire a hot dog. So if you think of your favorite foods, like the ones that are most desirable to you, which one do you think you would, if, like I said, Diesel, you have to break a record?
You also got to ask, like, what can you chew through and consume quickly? Right?
Ooh.
Like, some foods are denser than others. Like, you could say steak because it's delicious.
Yeah,
and I
tough.
would love to eat a lot of steak, but your jaw gets tired eating a lot of steak, right?
True.
Unless you're eating a really good cut of meat. And guess what? They're not serving, 5-star Kobe beef or Wagyu at these things where it just melts in your mouth, right? That would be like 25 grand worth of meat right there. I would love to say pizza, but man, I think that would be hard to swallow and get it down. Yeah.
Pizza would fill you up because of the bread. I think this would be fascinating, Diesel, because it's opposite of what you just said, but crab legs. I love crab legs, but you can't eat crab legs quick. So I don't know how you would do that.
Unless everything is pre-cracked and removed from the shell.
Oh, just a bunch of meat?
Just a whole bunch of meat. Yeah, we did that at New Year's. We got some of those like snow crab, like the king crab legs that are just massive. And like, it's weird for me, my wife, and my father-in-law to be sitting around a table showing each other, look how much meat I've got in my hand. Like, you crack this thing open and you pull the meat out and you're just like, hey, look at this giant stick of meat I got here.
Madcraft says easy for me. Easy answer. Beers. That might be a common answer in all the audience, right?
If you did that, though, Madcraft, you definitely wouldn't show up to an event the next day.
Texter from the 554, I like this one, says tacos for sure. Soft shell, right? I think I could down a good many tacos. I mean, I think 3 is what you get from the Taco Bell, your favorite place in the world, Diesel. I think I could do 10 easy. Spur Daddy says Hershey Kisses is the food that he could compete in. Dear God.
Seems like a great way to choke on one.
Hershey Kisses. Madcraft asks, how many one-chip challenges could you eat consistently or consecutively? Sorry. Have you done that yet?
You foolhardy young folk.
Have you done the one-chip challenge yet, Diesel?
No, I've never done the one-chip challenge.
You know what it is, though?
Yeah, I know. I'm very aware of what it is.
Whew.
But I have eaten all the hot sauces from Hot Ones. Like all the way up the YouTube show. You never seen Hot Ones?
No.
Oh, this is a great show. This is fascinating. Yeah, it's been going on for like 10 seasons. It's about chicken wings. It's been going on for like 10 seasons. This guy interviews celebrities while eating an array of increasingly spicy hot wings.
No way.
And it starts off really mild, like Texas Pete.
How have I never seen
And it gets all the way up to like million Scoville unit hot sauces. Like legitimately really, really, really harsh hot sauces.
I've never seen this.
And you get to learn like which celebrities are tough.
Yeah.
Which ones are babies. Which ones like tap out after wing number 5.
Both have to eat it?
Yeah, the interviewer and they do it at the same time.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you would love this.
I'm a chicken wing guy.
You love really, really hot chicken wings, like really spicy chicken wings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little stupid when it comes to hot sauce.
I've got them in my refrigerator at home.
This is awesome. I'm looking it up now. How have I never seen this?
Never seen Hot Ones.
No, Will Ferrell, Gordon Ramsay.
Don't start with the Conan O'Brien episode. It'll ruin it for you because he puts on a show unlike any other celebrity ever on that show.
This is probably, I mean, why?
It's every celebrity you can think of has done Hot Ones.
I'm so fascinated now. And who's the host? Do we know him?
Sean, I can't remember his last name. His name is Sean Evans. Yeah,
Sean Evans. And see, sadly, I don't even know who that is.
Can you guys believe this is what he does. This is what made him famous.
What a freaking job.
Can you guys believe that Cole has never seen Hot Ones on YouTube?
Man. That's nuts. But I'm glad you said chicken wings because that would probably be mine. Like if I had to say, hey, I want to be in a food challenge, I could consume some chicken wings. I mean, a lot of them. The Texter says a weird one. This comes from the 441. Yeah, Texter, you're right. This is a weird one. A weird one, but I could hammer some deviled crabs. Didn't think that was going to come through on the text line. Deviled crabs as your food challenge is what you can hammer. I guess I asked the question, if it's your favorite food, you can eat a lot of it, right? Deviled crab. I mean, I'll eat them. Not the biggest thing, not the best thing in the world. Jacob in Spartanburg says, I did the one chip challenge one time, and I will never do it again. It was absolute hell. It literally burned for 3 days as it moved through me.
Oh, I vomited my guts out on the Hot Ones challenge. The bomb hot sauce, I puked my guts out.
So you ate it?
Oh, yeah. I got up to that's wing number 8 out of 10.
There's levels?
I had 2 more to go. And I was already so full.
You literally puked for real?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
No
yeah.
way.
Puked over a fence, emptied the tank, you know?
Just one bite and that was it?
No. I'd already had we'd already sat around and ate probably 6 or 7 or 8 chicken wings each before we even started the game. And
Wow.
then you're like, all right, here's 8 more chicken wings with increasingly hot sauce. And then all of that stuff creates a rumble in the jungle. You know what I'm saying?
Have you done, I know you do,
Then,
well, you used to do the Sunday Panthers show from Wings Etc. in
Yeah.
Bowling Springs.
Mhm.
You don't anymore.
Sadly, no.
Sadly, no. Okay, so have you ever done the wall challenge there?
No.
You need to. You walk in, you'll see my beautiful face on the wall. I completed it. Their hottest flavor, it's called a wall sauce, right? I'm giving free promotion all of a sudden today. But, you know, the best way, Diesel, to eat hot chicken wings if you're in a competition. So I was doing this challenge, right? This was like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer than that. The challenge of the chicken wings, if you're doing a chicken wing, hot wing challenge, the issue is you get the hot sauce on your hands, it gets on your face, your lips, and it burns everywhere, right?
Sure.
Your lips are burning, and you're just miserable. And I think the challenge was like 12 wings. I couldn't use ranch, right? You can't make it any better with ranch or blue cheese. All you get's water. So about halfway through, I was burning, just miserable. And I asked the waitress, I said, hey, can I use a fork? She said, yeah. It's weird, but yeah. So I took all the meat off. The bones. Scraped all the meat off the bones and ate it with a fork because it just helped. It was still hot AF, right? But you didn't get it on your lips. You didn't get it all over the place. It was a little bit better.
To me, I think the answer would be eat it fast.
That's
So
true.
that it's not sitting on your lips for a long period of time. We're going to go to our guest here in just a minute, Cole. We're going to bring on David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet, but we're getting some fantastic suggestions for you for our poll, our bracket on the best overall downtown. You can still nominate throughout the show today your favorite downtown in the upstate as part of our wire-to-wire summer bracket. We got 3 votes for Greer, 2 votes for Fountain Inn, Greenville, Travelers Rest, and Simpsonville on the list.
I just barfed in my mouth.
3, 4. So we got 5. We got 5 downtowns that have been nominated. We're potentially putting up to 8 in this bracket. What's your favorite downtown in the upstate? If you want to nominate one of these again, great. The more votes we get, the more it ensures that downtown will be in the challenge. But when we come back, we bring on David Hood of TigerNet to break down Clemson telling ESPN to kick rocks. We ain't moving our game. That's next, right here on the Fan Upstate. You know, with as much change as we've seen in college football just over the past year, but especially when you look at it from the past couple of years, it's refreshing to see somebody push back. Tell ESPN, who thinks they control this sport, who should serve at the pleasure of the member institutions that are involved in its contractual rights. Clemson told ESPN, nah, we're not moving the Palmetto Bowl. We're not changing. And to talk about it, we bring on the writer who broke the story, David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. David, how awesome is it to you to see Clemson have the stones to tell ESPN we're not breaking from tradition?
David, you there? You got us? We lost David. David is not.
We
on
did.
the phone
Okay,
anymore.
let's see if we can get David Hood. I was talking to nobody.
I was
Wow.
like, man, I put him on and I hit the button, and guess what? He's not there. Let me try him back.
Let's see if we can get David Hood back on the show. But we're bringing on David Hood. Look him up on Twitter. M. David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. He's the one who broke the story about ESPN wanting to move the Palmetto Bowl to Black Friday, which you got to think, with as many people who are now shopping from home and not going out to stores, that ESPN says, hey, we could take advantage of that, right? We could put a highly viewed game on television and be able to get a lot of viewers as we bring on David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. Unfortunately, David, I don't think you heard my whole first opening spiel there because we lost you on the line. But how awesome is it to see Clemson push back against ESPN, who has basically operated with impunity and changing so much about college football and the scheduling? Isn't it great to see Clemson say, nah, we're not moving this thing?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. And, you know, this is really one of the few times that I have heard about a school pushing back. I mean, you know, Clemson has denied requests before to host Thursday night games. That is obviously a huge problem on campus. So those requests have been pushed back on in the past. But, you know, this one, a Friday and with all of the other concessions that come with it, you know, it just kind of makes sense that Clemson would push back. And, of course, everything that's going on with, you know, the lawsuit, the litigious nature of the relationship between the league and Clemson. It's just interesting to me. It's fascinating.
David, do you happen to know any of the reasoning? I mean, I know you mentioned the lawsuit there. That probably has a lot to do with it. But do you know any of the reasoning that Clemson said, no, we want to keep this on Saturday?
Well, you know, first of all, Dabo Sweeney, and I didn't get this from Dabo or from anybody at Clemson, they kind of declined to make a statement. But in checking around, you know, Dabo has said in the past he doesn't want to play opposite high school games. High school games in South Carolina are huge, and there are high school games that Friday night. And if, you know, they were to play this game and then South Carolina reciprocates and they play on a Friday night later, well, then that would probably interfere with high school football too. So that's number one. You know, number two, I don't think anybody likes that Friday time slot. It's just hard to get ready for. Clemson would rather kind of keep their normal schedule. And then, you know, another part of it is that when it gets to bowl season and now we've got an expanded college football playoff, you know, coaches and players are all missing their families on Christmas for bowl games anyway. A lot of times maybe they will leave on Christmas Day to go to a bowl site, but now you're asking everybody to go into a hotel on Thursday. And so there's no Thanksgiving. I know that, you know, Clemson loves for their players to be able to have kind of a light walkthrough on Thursday of Thanksgiving and then be able to send them home. Players that live too far away to be with their parents can come up, or they can go home with their friends. It's just kind of an opportunity for everybody before the big rivalry game to take a break. And this would allow for no break whatsoever for Thanksgiving and really Christmas either.
David, do you believe any part of this, and how much of this may be schools becoming aware of the potential damage to their brands if they sort of buck from the tradition of Saturday games? You know, fans may stop coming to games. They may stop tailgating. They may stop going into the games. How much of that do you think is a factor?
Yeah, I don't know that it's a huge factor, but it's a factor. Whenever back in the day, everybody loved to maybe play on a Thursday because it was the only game in town, right? Oh my gosh, got a Thursday night game this year against NC State. That's fantastic. Then the NFL took that over, and college football had to try and find another night. And Friday games have just been a non-starter. Again, goes up against high school football. I think if you love football, you love high school football, and then you start seeing some of these other leagues, whether it's Group of Five or 1AA, playing on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Friday night. It's like, oh, Alabama doesn't play on Friday night. Georgia doesn't play on Friday night. These bigger schools don't. And it does. It's kind of, well, you got a Friday night game, man. That stinks, doesn't it? And I do think that schools pay attention to that.
Hey, David, how surprised were you by the statement of Michael Strickland where he basically said, look, ACC's disappointed in Clemson's lack of cooperation. It's incumbent upon the ACCs to work in good faith. Does that surprise you, what Michael said?
It does not, and it kind of goes back again to the relationship between Clemson and the league right now being strained. But that's him saying, hey, guess what? We're really disappointed in you. We're trying to make nice with ESPN. We're trying to do our part, because ESPN, so here's a part of it. ESPN has what you would call a look in to this media rights deal with the Atlantic Coast Conference next February. And the ACC wants to put their best foot forward. And I don't think it's going to be renegotiated to the betterment of the league, but it could be negotiated down. They could change the terms of the contract. And so the ACC is wanting to do whatever ESPN wants so that when that look-in happens next February, they don't lose even more money. And Clemson refusing to do this for that four-letter network kind of hurts them in their eyes, in their relationship with ESPN.
David, when situations like this arise, when the network sends you a request to move the date of your game, I understand that you're already getting paid by the league to feature the games on their network in general, but is there any other additional compensation, so to speak, other than just being on prime time? Do they say, hey, guess what? We'll throw you another $500,000 or something like that if you're willing to move your game?
Yeah, I have never heard of that. I've never heard of anything like that happening.
That's interesting.
And I think that's why the ACC tried to sweeten the pot with Clemson. Hey, guess what? We're going to move the Citadel game to noon the week before. Clemson has had an issue of road games. Seems like every time Clemson goes on the road, they're the big draw in the ACC. And every time they play on the road, it's at night, right? So we're going to limit you to 2 night games on the road in the ACC. We're going to say that the Labor Day Monday conference game featuring Clemson, would be a Clemson home game. I think that's why they tried to sweeten the pot for that.
David, can you go back to the look-ins that you were talking about that the conference will be doing? We're speaking with David Hood of TigerNet, senior writer for TigerNet. David broke the story earlier today about the Palmetto Bowl and the possibility of it moving to Black Friday. But what do those look-ins look like from what you know?
Yeah, from a Clemson standpoint, they would almost look at it as not a look-in, but an opt-out, because ESPN does. They have the opportunity in February to opt out of their media rights deal with the ACC. They also have the opportunity to either sweeten the pot. I don't think that's going to happen, or to lower, what their current payout is. And so that's why I think it's so important for the ACC, at least from their standpoint, to kind of not only maintain the status quo, but keep everybody happy. But yeah, this is one of those look-ins. And if ESPN somehow changes the actual, basis of the contract, that would give schools like Clemson or Florida State a chance to opt out and go their own way.
David Hood, David, find him on Twitter at @MDavidHood. He's a senior writer for TigerNet, joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. David, think big picture here in terms of exposure, potential bumps to recruiting. Do you believe that it's worth it to chase the out-of-state pop-in viewers, which would be kind of the point here of moving this game to when they want to move it to Black Friday, to the detriment of the in-state fans who, like we were talking about earlier, have their tradition of going to games on Friday at high schools and then coming to Saturday college games? Do you think it's worth it? Do they get any real tangible benefit from moving that game to a primetime slot?
I don't think it's worth it at all. And you have to look at the recruiting aspect too. If the game is played on a Friday night, then your recruits, no matter where they're from, if they're from Tennessee or Georgia or North Carolina or South Carolina, they're not going to be able to make it in for that game because they're probably finishing up their high school season. And this is a final chance. This is it. This is your last chance to get recruits on campus for a home game. Moving it to a Friday night makes absolutely no sense, no matter how many eyes you get on it.
Hey, David, you mentioned recruiting, not to completely move away from that conversation about the Black Friday game, but can you give us a recruiting update as we are now in the month of July, only 1 month away from real football happening in college football? Can you give us a little bit of a Clemson recruiting update midsummer?
Well, we're going to have some stories coming up. Clemson still got some targets out there that they're looking at, 26, 25. There have been some misses, especially along the offensive line. I got the word late last week. Hardy Watts, offensive lineman, out of the Northeast. It looked like he was going to go to Wisconsin. That happened. Cortez Mills, wide receiver out of Florida, looks like he's, headed to Oklahoma. And people are always asking, what does that mean? Why is that happening? And I think, sometimes kids just, they don't, it's just not the perfect spot for them. I think NIL is playing a part. And then I think all of this lawsuit stuff is probably playing a part as well. So Clemson with some misses, they're going to have to regroup. Their next big recruiting event is going to be on July 26th. That's the all-in cookout. They got a bunch of 25 guys that they're bringing in. They had that big recruiting weekend at the first weekend of January or of June when they could get guys on campus. And unlike last year when they started to net guys like Sammy Brown, like Bryant Westco, TJ Moore, this one has not produced like last year's did. So the all-in cookout going to be big for this program. Kamar Archie, a linebacker, he is close to making a decision. I think it's going to be a big deal for the Tigers. There's another kid, Dylan Alfred out of Mississippi, was a one-time Ole Miss commit, came to Clemson's camp. Really liked the way that he looked. Tyler Grisham offered him, and I think that, if everything goes right at the all-in cookout, he'll probably commit to the Tigers. But right now, kind of a rough stretch that they're going through, and now all signs are going to kind of point to that all-in cookout at the end of the month.
David, I know that you're covering this story and you broke the story from the Clemson beat, but are you hearing anything at all from the South Carolina side of this refusal to change the date?
I have not heard anything from South Carolina on this.
It's interesting. It just obviously I think the majority of Clemson media and Clemson fans and people in the upstate are on the same side of it, not making sense. But I guess the only other thing I would say is, David, like, to play devil's advocate, and I heard what you said, you care more about what's happening in the stadium than you do in terms of eyes on the television. We were talking about earlier the Egg Bowl that, used to be on that night with it being the only game televised. I wonder if this had happened years ago, David, and it were something that Clemson fans were used to by now, if their tune would be any different.
And that's a possibility. Clemson and South Carolina do have that, differentiator in their rivalry. For years, they played the Big Thursday game, which was, I think the third Thursday in October of every year. And then in 1959, they moved it to Saturdays and started alternating between Clemson and Columbia. So there's that history there. And, if you'd maybe done it 10 years ago, maybe, but right now it just doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion.
David, what else is happening around Tiger Town? We're looking at your Twitter account right now. There's quite a bit happening with recruiting across the board in multiple different fronts, but what's special out there?
Well, we did a series with Clemson's basketball transfers, which I thought was fantastic. We did video interviews, we being me and Grayson Mann. I think that's been great. Eric Bakich is doing unbelievable work out on the recruiting trail with transfers and trying to replace a lot of that home run power. Luke Gaffney is a kid who's playing up in the Cape Cod League right now, first baseman, transferred over from Purdue. Colin Priest, guy that came over from Michigan. They've just got some guys that have got power. They just got another, shortstop guy that's out of California, out of the JUCO ranks. He's really adding some firepower into that lineup. I think that's fascinating. And recruiting now really starting to get ramped up on the 26 guys while they try and finish 25. And, the one thing that I'm kind of following on the 25 tack is what's going to happen next with offensive line. They've got 3 guys committed already in Rowan Byrne, Easton Ware, Braden Jacobs. I love all those guys. But they were wanting to add a 4th, maybe even a 5th at some point. And so, when does the next offer go out, or who that they have already offered, do they kind of open up that relationship again? So, plenty of stuff to watch right now. It seems like this has probably been the busiest, as I call it, dark territory that I've ever had.
David, great stuff as always, man. We look forward to having you on again soon, and we appreciate your time, brother.
Hey, anytime. Thank you.
That's David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. Does a terrific job. And David, or Diesel, you said earlier, you can find him on Twitter at David Hood. Is that right?
That's correct.
Didn't want to screw that up there.
Definitely look him up. We had a texter here that says, damn, old Bob was right earlier about the high school games. Yeah. Bob put me in my place. David Hood put me in my place. Dabo seeing the importance of high school games. And David sort of brought it up there to a place that I hadn't considered yet when he said, this is your last chance to get recruits on campus.
Yeah.
And if you play it on a Friday night, you absolutely cannot get any high school recruits anywhere onto your campus unless just so happens to be that they have the last week off as a bye week, and that probably doesn't happen very often. So it would be really stupid of Clemson to give away their last opportunity and easily one of the best environments, top 2 or 3 environments that you're going to have all year long, just so that they can make ESPN happy, just so that the deal that they don't want to be a part of anyway stays sweet for the league.
Something we haven't talked about, and I haven't heard, and if you have, let me know, but if they would have accepted this, would this just be a 1-year deal or every year?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think this ends up being a precedent setter to where this is what it is every year.
So South Carolina Clemson might be the new
Very well
Egg
could.
Bowl.
If South Carolina agreed to it as well, then it could end up being this every year.
I think that's where you have to consider.
And that's where it becomes a problem.
Sure.
Texter says, tell me why Clemson refuses to play home games at night. Well, Texter, they don't refuse to play home games at night. They don't play a ton of them. It would, as the fan, it would sure as hell be nice, right? Not to be out there in the sweltering September heat at a noon kickoff. But schools, a lot of times, don't have any choice in that. ESPN tells you what time you're going to kick off. Just in this instance, ESPN said, or Clemson said, no, ESPN, we're not doing what you want.
Not
bleep you. I won't do what you tell me, to quote Rage Against the Machine.
Not today, says Clemson. I like it too. All right, coming up next, Daily Wires, the Braves. They're back in action. We'll talk about the Atlanta Braves a little bit more coming up next. We're live from the Ingles Markets studios, getting you update on what's going on around the sports world. We call it the Daily Wires.
Bzzz.
Jason Tatum, Diesel, and the Boston Celtics have agreed on the largest contract in NBA history. Are you kidding me?
Bow, 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 bow.
Whew, 5-year, $314 million extension. That is $62.8 million a year. And if you want to break it down by the week, I know they don't, but if they were Diesel to get paid every week, it would be $1.3 million a week.
Good God.
You think Jason Tatum can survive on 1.3? I mean, can you imagine getting paid weekly and every Friday you're waking up 1.3, 1.3? I mean, I can't imagine it. It's nuts. Also in the NBA, Cleveland Cavaliers all-star guard Donovan Mitchell has agreed on a 3-year, $150 million maximum contract extension that includes a player option for the 2027 season, sources told ESPN. Atlanta Braves, they did not lose yesterday. Good news for Bravo fans everywhere. No loss because they didn't play. However, they are back in action tonight. Good news, Reynaldo Lopez on the mound for the Bravos versus Hayden Birdsong for the Giants. Atlanta, San Francisco tonight, 7:20. Braves getting a 3-game stretch going against the Giants. Doing a little NL East watching, Diesel. The Phillies are in Chicago facing the Cubs, who aren't good, for a 3-game stretch. Probably take 2 or 3, so not much hope of the Braves gaining ground right now, being 8 games back in the East. However, this weekend, if you want to gain some ground, you can just beat them.
Yeah, but how do you eat an elephant, Cole?
I would assume you start by eating the. I don't know. I have no idea.
One bite at a time.
Okay, that's good. That's a good. I was gonna say.
I thought you were gonna say chop it up into pieces, slather it with sauce, wrap it in tinfoil, put it in the smoker.
Yeah,
get you that nice burnt end on it.
Yeah,
put some sauce on top. No,
Smoked.
you're thinking too hard about this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Smoked elephant. I like it.
I bet that would be good.
God. David Hood, who you just heard of TigerNet, announced that ESPN and ACC, well, they requested Clemson to move its home game against South Carolina to a Friday night for a Black Friday contest. Clemson said, nope. Team USA's Christian Pulisic ripped referees following the team's USA exit from the group stage of the Copa America tournament. I did see a video on social media where he was upset. Have no clue what it was about because these I don't watch soccer. So there's my soccer of the day. Did you watch this?
No, I didn't watch it. I just read the description of what happened.
He was upset, I guess.
he was upset. Yeah, he was upset because Uruguay scored the only goal in the game in the 66th minute. Video replay apparently very clearly showed that the Uruguayan player was offsides. But they said, nah, he's onside. Goal is good. And Christian Pulisic said, he stated that officiating is not the reason why the U.S. team lost that game. But he said, quote, I saw things I've never seen before right in front of my eyes that I truly can't believe.
So basically it is the reason.
Yeah.
I
think he's talking about the whole game. He's not necessarily talking about that one play.
Yeah.
He's talking about the whole game. But, yeah, I know Uruguay soccer is their sport. That is what they do. And that's true for most countries around the world. But you got to think, as big as America is, we can't field a team better than them. That's pathetic.
Pathetic, he says. John Gruden lost his bid for a reconsideration of his lawsuit against the NFL, so that's not going to happen. Gruden claims the league forced him to resign after racist, sexist, and homophobic emails leaked back in 2021 that had been sent many, many years earlier while he worked at ESPN. The emails were obtained amid some 650,000 emails during a workplace culture investigation of the Washington Redskins. So basically the book's closed here, right? For now.
Yeah, he can take it to, this is one of the things about the U.S. legal system. He can take this to any court that will listen to it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, he lost the lawsuit and then he asked for it to be reconsidered and he got shot down there. So the likelihood that this goes farther is it's pretty low.
Pretty low for old Johnny boy. And lastly, last piece of news for this Daily Wires segment, Oklahoma State running back, it's that time of year, Ollie Gordon. He was arrested on suspicion of DUI. Trooper said he was doing 17 over the speed limit and swerved into an oncoming lane. Diesel, this doesn't surprise me. However, it does surprise me that it's an Oklahoma State running back, not a Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, come on.
Yeah. This is screw up season. Isn't this the time of the year where a couple of Bulldog players get pulled over for street racing?
Should be.
Yeah. Should be time. There was that old Steve Spurrier quote. He loves playing Georgia early in the year because a couple of their star players are going to be out.
And they usually
on suspension.
Are.
Yeah.
They usually are.
Trey,
well, ETN was.
Yep. Trey, this is terrible. He says Diesel has me looking up elephant recipes after that.
Elephant recipes, Trey.
Share what you find, Trey.
You might be the only person to Google that in America in the last 3 years.
You may end up on some list, man. You don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't suggest that. So, listen, let's hope for a positive week. I know today's Tuesday, but let's hope for a positive week for the Atlanta Braves. Going back to the Braves, 3-game series against the San Francisco Giants, and then beginning Friday, the Braves are they're still at home, right? Yeah, they're still at home hosting the Phillies. Pitching matchups will be Reynaldo Lopez tonight. Tomorrow you will have Chris Sale on the mound. And then Thursday in the series finale against the Giants, you will have Uncle Charlie. Hopefully your best bet is get 2 out of 3, and then Fridays or Thursdays a wash because Charlie Morton sucks.
Yeah, as we brought on Jake Mastriani yesterday on the show, he said, man, pitching, you can tell pitching is not the problem.
Yeah.
It's the hitting. I mean, pitching is not giving up a ton of earned runs, giving up 3 to 4 a game. Starting pitching is giving up 3 to 4 a game. That's got to put you in a position where you can score 5 or 6 and go win a game. But the offense is just leaving this good pitching staff out to dry.
You'll have Max Fried on Friday, Spencer Schwellenbach on Saturday, and that should be Reynaldo Lopez back on Sunday if you need them to maybe close out a 2-game win, hopefully two wins against the Phillies. Diesel.
Gordon Rogers says Clemson needs to stay in the ACC. Well, that look in, maybe ESPN could blow this thing up. I mean, if they own all the properties, they can move the chess pieces around however they want, right? That's the big conspiracy theory that maybe ESPN wants to break the ACC in half, send some of them north to the Big Ten, some of them south to the SEC. When we come back, it's time for Cole and I to put up our dukes and fight about it. We call it the 5 o'clock fight. It's the most interactive with segment on the show each and every day. It's because you Tolos are awesome. The 5 o'clock fight is next. every single day here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We get along and we agree about everything. Every segment. It's what we do. Until we get to 5 o'clock, at which point the gloves come off. Cole and I have to disagree. It's the law. We have to fight about things because it's called the 5 o'clock fight. It's the most interacted with segment on the show each and every day. And you, the Tolos, tell us who wins each round of the fight. Who makes the most compelling argument? It's called the 5 o'clock fight. Let's get going. Now, here's how this works. We're going to fight about 3 different topics, some of them sports, some of them not. You tell us who wins by texting into the show, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan or comment on the Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube stream. Let's go with round number 1. Oh, Cole, this is a real Kobayashi Maru. If you're a Star Trek fan, you know what that means. If you're not, it means nothing.
You're lost like me.
It's like an unwinnable puzzle. It's an undefeatable obstacle that you have to get around, okay? You can have your dream car, but you never get to have your dream home. Or you can have your dream home, but you never get your dream car. Which do you choose?
This one's tough.
Now, are we talking about just the physical structure of the home, or does that include the property that it's on?
It can be either or.
Okay.
I was just thinking
you get the property too.
Yeah, I would say even though this is a tough question, give me the home. I'm not a big car guy. I like cars. I love trucks. I don't get me wrong. I love to have dream cars and a garage slammed full of the nicest Corvettes and Mustangs in the world. However, I would rather have a beautiful house on some land with a pond behind it. If the home's nice enough, I don't have a need for a car. I'll never get in the car. So
you never go anywhere.
Yeah, I'll just stay at home all the time. So the answer for me here is dream home.
Yeah. So how many times do you drive by a trailer park and you see a Corvette sitting out front of one of them?
Or a nice truck.
That really nice truck sitting out front. I don't think we're going this extreme, Cole, but you could live in an okay house. It doesn't have to be a piece of crap house.
Yeah.
With your dream car. In a way, Cole, I feel like I'm kind of there right now. Like, I love my Jeep. Like, I have an emotional response to my Jeep every single time I get into it. Could it be a nicer vehicle? Yeah. Could it have more bells and whistles? Yeah. But I love this thing. I love being in my car. I love thinking about my car. So I'm going with the dream car and never having my dream home, because I can't take my dream home out into the woods and ride trails in it like I can in my Jeep. So give me my dream car, which is a super built up, every bell and whistle Jeep.
I like it, but I like the home better.
That's fair. That's fair. That's why we disagree. That's why
right.
we do the segment. All right, let's go with round number 2. You're going to a barbecue restaurant, Cole. You can only get one side, and you haven't tasted either of these sides, so you don't know if theirs is good or not. You only get one side. Do you go with the baked beans or the potato salad?
Only one side.
Yeah. I know it sounds like blasphemy, right? Because you go to a barbecue restaurant, they'll give you all the sides.
This is so tough. This might be the toughest 5 o'clock question we've ever had, because Sunday night I had brisket, baked beans, and a potato salad on Sunday night. No lie. Like 2 days ago. And I love them both.
This is a tough question for a true Southerner, right?
It is awful. However, if I only get one, give me the baked beans.
Really?
I'll take the baked beans. I'm a baked bean guy. You have to have baked beans with whatever you're eating, especially barbecue. I'm a beans guy. Well, it's tough though.
You're a mayonnaise guy. Isn't potato salad like 80% mayonnaise?
It's good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. I like them both.
Yeah, if you're telling me, yeah, I'm getting the potato salad, man, because there's for lack of a better word, it's a beefier side, like potatoes.
More fulfilling, maybe.
You get to add all the extra flavors in it, man. I like potato salad. Sometimes baked beans are just kind of bleh and bland and plain.
Well, they got to be good baked beans, to your point.
Like I said, you just don't know. Like, it's the first time going to this restaurant. You don't know if their baked beans or the potato salad is good, but you got to choose one.
That's tough.
All right, we got one more fight to go. Let's hit it.
Final round. Fight.
It's 4th of July. Not literally, it's the 2nd of July, but 2 days from now, it's going to be the 4th of July. What do? Shoot off your own fireworks at home or go watch them at a free display?
Man, this one's tough as well. However, Diesel, while I love watching fireworks, I like to be the one igniting the fireworks. I want to be the one putting the match or the lighter to the fuse and lighting that bad boy up. I love shooting my own fireworks. I absolutely go crazy for it. Spend too much money doing it. I bought some on last Saturday. I love shooting my own fireworks. There's no way that, there's only one right answer here, by the way.
Well, I don't usually buy my own fireworks because, a lot of people in my neighborhood already do it anyway. But Cole, I think the answer is you get these piddly little fireworks that you can light off in your neighborhood. A lot of places have HOAs. You're freaking out the neighbor's dog. You're maybe giving your veteran neighbor PTSD. Or you could go see this massive display. I'm talking where they go 100 feet in the air, huge explosions, and then you just go on home. What's better than that? Some of them, depending on where your house is, if you kind of got a high vantage point, you can just sit on your back porch and watch huge displays all over town.
Listen, I like watching them, but man, do I love shooting those things off. There's something about it. There's something about just getting that smell of smoke on you, on your hands.
It's a good smell.
It's a great smell. And then there's something about being able to say, oh man, look at that. That's a great, we had something to do with it, look what we did. We shot the fireworks. We held the lighter to the fuse, even though anybody could have done it. It feels good shooting them, man.
So there you go. That's your 5 o'clock fight. Round 1 to recap. You can have your dream car, but you never get your dream house. Or you can have your dream house, but you never get your dream car. What do you choose? Cole went with the house. I went with the car. Round 2, if you're going to a barbecue restaurant, you can only get one side, but you can't sample them to see what you like first. Which one are you going to get? The baked beans or the potato salad? Cole went with the baked beans. I went with the tater salad. And finally, in round number 3, 4th of July, would you rather shoot off your own fireworks or go watch a display for free? I say go watch the display because it's bigger. It's better. Cole says he'd rather have the chance to blow off his own hand. There you go. What do you say?
What do you want Diesel and Cole Bryson to fight about next?
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to diesel@thefanupstate.com. Subject line, fight on the Fan Upstate.
Man, you Tolos have been shirking your duties, not sending me 5 o'clock fight ideas in a while. It's time for you to step up and email me, diesel@thefanupstate.com. What do you say? 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. You can also message us on the stream on Facebook, Twitter, or on YouTube. Cole, why don't you kick us off and go first with the text votes?
Well, you know how they are. They come in a little bit slower than the stream votes. So I'll get to the 3 that I have. Actually, I have 4. I do have Billy Bob. Billy Bob chimes in. He usually calls, but he's texting today. Billy Bob says, them Clemson players might live in trailers, but that new spring money gives them Mustangs and Corvettes. Again, this text is all caps, by the way. Fantastic, Billy Bob. I appreciate that. 979 says Cole sweeps. 316, Diesel wins 2, Cole wins 1.
Really? I thought I was going to get swept by everyone here. I thought everyone was going to vote Cole with the sweep because Madcraft says Cole with the sweep. He says baked beans are always good in the South, and if you don't like launching rockets, you're un-American. Gordon gives you the round 1 win. Don't have his round 2 or 3 votes yet.
Yeah, I did mess up. I said on that text, I said Diesel wins 2. I thought he meant both rounds. It was Diesel wins 2, Cole wins 1 and 3.
Oh, man, I thought I had it. G, you let me down. Chuck Johnson says Cole wins round 1, Diesel wins round 2 and 3. How about that? How about that, Chuck?
Chuck's got your back
Love
today.
you. Love you, pal.
Chuck's got you back. Bullwinkle says, I'm going with Cole today. Dream home for me, but it's 2-1. I'm definitely watching fireworks for free. So he does agree with you on the fireworks for free.
Do you want to give us a number? How much you spent on fireworks? Is it 3 digits?
No. Saturday, I was at some friend's house and I just bought a few small ones for Thursday. I didn't spend much at all.
I mean, let's be real. I could have a great time with just a pack of Roman candles.
Yeah.
That's
Shoot
all.
each other, right?
All I really need is a pack of Roman candles.
No, I'm with you.
Handheld explosives. What could go wrong?
I'm a simple kind of guy. Give me the poppers. What are the?
Because he's a simple kind of man.
What are those little poppers called? Are they called poppers?
Snappers, right?
Snappers. I love those. Right?
Those are great.
I'm simple, man. I don't need much.
Trey says Roger Taylor, the drummer of Queen, wrote and sang a song called "I'm in Love with My Car." It was on the B-side to Bohemian Rhapsody. He probably made so much money that he got the car and a castle.
Corn Chip says Cole with 1 and 2, but Diesel gets the third. I'd managed to burn something, even following the directions. Amazon guy can't have bottle rockets fight at big shows.
Wait, who reads the instructions on lighting fireworks? You just stick it on the ground and light the fuse, run away.
That's true.
Back up, Terry.
Back it up. 912 says Cole sweeps. 813, the fan, Cole, first 2 rounds, Diesel. Oh, that's Sly Guy. Sly Guy he does side with you on
Even
round
though I didn't
3.
get the series win. Madcraft says Cole likes snakes and sparklers.
Yes, I do. I like those. I haven't seen them in a long time.
What about honky lighters, Hoosker do's, Hoosker don'ts, Nipsey daisers, with or without the scooter stick?
What are they called?
Or one single whistling kitty chaser?
Snakes and sparklers. I forgot about snakes. What about the little army trucks you like, I like the smoke bombs as well. I'm a kid when it comes to fireworks, man. I don't need much.
He likes throwing fireworks at people.
Big Mick says Cole sweep. Let's see. Texter says Diesel gets the sweep like the Tigers will be swept by the 2 SEC schools this football season. And you can continue to get your thoughts in. What's interesting is the firework conversation is going your way. The other 2, I'm getting a few sweeps, but I thought people would be more inclined to shoot their own, but it looks like round 3, looks like you're getting a few more round 3 wins.
Yeah, that blows me away. It really does.
That people would rather go watch?
Yeah, because, how you hear it is warning time, right? For all the people who are going to end the weekend with fewer fingers than the way they started the weekend.
Yeah.
Be smart, would you?
Who was that football player Jason Pierre-Paul, I believe?
Yeah. Light it and back up, Terry.
That's true.
Yeah.
Back it up, Terry. That's terrible. I shouldn't make fun of a football player. There it is. I shouldn't make fun of a football player, but I believe it was Jason Pierre-Paul that burned his finger off. You remember that?
Don't let that be you. I do remember that. It just goes to show you can be rich, famous, but it doesn't make you smart.
It does not make you smart. Yes, 2016, July 4th, at a holiday cookout at Deerfield Beach, Florida, Giants defensive end.
You had me at Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Giants defensive end. Jason Pierre-Paul, Diesel, stood on a patch of sun-beaten grass across the street from a party where more than 50 family members and friends piled in the 90-degree heat. Nearby, parked on a shoulder, sat a U-Haul van. He purchased $1,100 worth of fireworks and put them in a freaking U-Haul and ended up burning his finger off. So here's what I want to do before we hit a break.
Surprise. I once saw somebody get a handy on the beach at Deerfield Beach in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that to go there.
It was gross.
Hunt GPT says, you mean to tell me you don't have any whistling bungholes? Diesel 2-1 says, Owl Baby. Artillery shells are the best, says Owl Baby. Those are good. Fan, bottle rockets, more like Sellers rockets. Cade sucks. I believe that's still Bobby. That's terrible. All right, real quick question I have for the Tolos. What's the most amount of money you've ever spent on fireworks in one trip? One trip to the fireworks store. I guess also, what's too much? Like if I wanted to go just
There's no
blow
such
it
thing
up,
as too much.
I guess not. Jason Pierre-Paul, who's an NFL vet, 1,100.
There was that house. We talked about it last week we're in Connecticut where the fire department burnt the house down because they thought it was unsafe to go get the fireworks trove out of the basement.
So the only way you could change my mind, Diesel, would be telling me that I would have to spend an ungodly amount on fireworks versus going to a show. Because, like, while I pick shooting them myself and doing it, at a home or a gathering or a party, if I have to spend, a lot of money, and that's the question. What's a lot? What would be too much to spend on fireworks? Is it 3 digits?
So, that's a lot of money. So the ultimate question is, I think what a lot of people are saying is, it's better to shoot off a smaller firework but close up than it is to go somewhere and watch somebody shoot off massive fireworks from a distance. Right?
Could be.
That's what you're saying?
Could be. I like the massive
triple
ones, though,
digits.
the fireworks.
Triple digits. I don't think is necessarily a problem. We've all been to these fireworks stands. It is
They're
real
expensive.
easy. It is easy to spend $100 on fireworks, right?
Do you know I bought one firework on Saturday for $30?
Jeez.
One. That's ridiculous. That's all I spent, though. I bought one firework and
Did
some smoke
Megan
bombs.
Fox pop out of this thing when you light it off? What happened?
Actually, it was Jennifer Aniston popped out. Yeah,
Nice.
The army man that falls from the sky. It was Jennifer Aniston falling from the sky.
dressed as a GI.
She was actually doing the We're the Millers scene. So that's what.
Big fan.
Yeah,
Big fan of that one.
So to Diesel's point, stay safe. Don't do anything stupid on Thursday. We will not be on these airwaves Thursday.
We will not be providing any comforts to you if you blow a handoff.
True.
We will not be offering any financial support to pay your bills if you blow a handoff. Texter says probably $1 million is too much. Anything less is okay if you don't ask the wife for permission.
$1 million.
That's the real question. How much money could you spend on fireworks before it pisses off the wife?
That's a good question too.
I think the answer is probably like $200. Like that's when it starts to get excessive. That's when it starts. Like if you come home with $300 worth of fireworks, $400, $500 worth of fireworks, just to a suburban home, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not a professional. But you go up to the store.
But if you were, it'd be okay.
Come home and say, honey, look at all this that I got.
Trey says, I usually go to a fireworks show for free. I don't like seeing my money go up in smoke. And that's, to Diesel's point just now, that's what I said the other day. I love shooting fireworks, but at the same time, it is watching your money burn. Literally. You are burning the money. The only difference is when you burn the money, it provides a wow, look at that. Right? You get some beautiful sights, some great sounds, but you're still burning the freaking money. But I'm all for it. All right, Diesel. Coming up next, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask the Tolos a question about Steph Curry. Yesterday, we talked about the Warriors dynasty breaking up with Klay Thompson going to the Big D. I have a question regarding Steph Curry and if he should continue to be loyal or otherwise. I'll tell you what otherwise is. You may not be a big fan of otherwise. Stay tuned. Turn it on. Leave it on. We'll talk about it next. Billy Bob on the text line in all caps again says, I just discovered texting. Seller's going to make all the fireworks. Get used to it in November when he throws 8 touchdowns. I can't get enough of Billy Bob.
Now, if that became a South Carolina Gamecock fan tradition to go outside and shoot off a firework every time Lenora Sellers throws a touchdown, I'm down for that. I'm really down for that.
God,
See,
creating them.
Shooting fireworks at home was never a thing for me because it's illegal to shoot fireworks in a neighborhood in North Carolina.
That's true. That's true.
I grew up not being able to do it.
Yeah.
Damn North Carolina, its laws.
No, it's true, though. I forget about that.
Yeah.
South Carolina, of course, they'll let you do whatever.
There's more freedom down here.
I have a question about Steph Curry. And I know that ring chasing's not the best thing in the world, and people probably don't love the idea of ring chasing. But, Diesel, I ask the Tolos, should Steph Curry, now that this dynasty's kind of broken up, should he retire a Warrior or should he go ring chase? I have an opinion on this, but I'll let you go first with your answer.
I think it's time for Steph to go ahead and ride off into the sunset.
Oh, and retire?
Yeah, and retire. Just go ahead. Steph, you've won everything you could possibly win, right? And if he does go to another team, now that the Warriors are broken up, right? If he goes to another team, it'll be seen as nothing but ring chasing. Playing for a couple more years, trying to go out and get one more title. How many does Steph have?
4.
Steph has 4.
15, 17, 18, and 22.
He's going to go down in history as one of the greatest shooters of all time. And
Should be the best.
Yeah, one of the best point guards in a long, long time. So I'm just saying I don't think he needs to go out and chase any more rings. If he stays in Golden State, they're either going to have to rebuild the team to give him something to replace Clay, or he's going to have to go somewhere else to chase a ring. And wouldn't it be funny if he signed with Dallas? Just like, what, give me a $1 contract. I'm already rich. Like, what do I need the money for?
That would be nuts. First of all, I guess I have an answer, but I also have another question before I give you my answer. Is it okay to ring chase if you are like worthy of being a guy who can go ring chase? Because I don't think like a Dylan Brooks or anybody like that, or somebody who's not proven, Diesel, should go ring chase. But if you're a LeBron, if you're a Steph Curry, don't you have enough of a pedigree to deserve to go ring chase? That's a fantastic question.
Chris Paul's a great example. We talked about that yesterday.
True.
He's been on 7 teams?
Yep. 7 almost.
Never got a ring.
7 almost 22. I think Steph Curry, to your point, he's done enough. There's nothing else that he has to prove. And anybody that tells you that is lying. He's one of the best players ever in the history of the game. Literally changed the game, transformed the game, and in my opinion, will go down as the greatest shooter ever. Now, you can have the conversation about the point guard position and him being a true point guard. You can have that conversation. I've heard that about him and Magic, and while Magic was fan-freaking-tastic, there's something that Steph did that might be a little more special, in my opinion. Not to get that conversation started right now, not to get that debate started, but Steph Curry, I don't think he needs to go ring chase, but I also will say this. I think it would be interesting for the game of basketball if he did go ring chase. And again, he doesn't need it. But if he still loves the game, Diesel, if he still has years left, he's still a really good player. He's not in his prime, but he's still really good. He still makes a big impact on the floor, right? If we want to see some incredible parity in the NBA with Klay Thompson and Dallas, wouldn't it make it so much more fascinating, so much more intriguing from the viewer standpoint, from the fan standpoint, if he did go somewhere? Now, I know Charlotte, a lot of people have talked about it. I've said that before. Look, go follow in the footsteps of his dad, go retire a Hornet. It'd be great for Charlotte. I don't think he'll ever do it. But
Charlotte would get the much better end of that deal.
Yeah, I think they would get the way better end. But I just think it'd be fantastic to see him go to another team that gives a team like a New York. I know they have Jalen Brunson, who's the point guard, but somewhere where this team has been either on the bubble. I tell you what, I wouldn't hate to see Steph Curry to go somewhere like a Houston or a Cleveland, somewhere that's a really good, solid roster that may not be there yet, but may just be a superstar away from really competing. Still a really good team. I don't know if he'll ever do it. I know John Morant in Memphis has that locked up on the Tennessee front, but I'd love to see him go somewhere and really provide some parity, because we've seen Steph Curry in Golden State for so long. I just want to see something different.
Well, to what you said, if he's just doing it for the love of the game, then he doesn't need to go somewhere else, right? He will love playing basketball for Golden State. He doesn't have to. I would love to see him go somewhere that's not, if he was going to go somewhere, I would love to see him go where LeBron has never been. So I would say, like, don't go to Miami, don't go to Cleveland, obviously don't go to LA, unless he's ring chasing, in which case go play with LeBron in LA, right? Like, what?
Yeah. It'd be fascinating. Wouldn't have to move states, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that with Klay Thompson leaving, this team is deficient and cannot win a title. Draymond's still on the roster.
He's still there.
But those two together can't win a title, right? They just absolutely cannot.
And they've lost a lot of other pieces as well. That's
you have to completely overhaul this roster, and that's not a guarantee, obviously. That people are not busting down the door to go play with Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're going to be able to attract the superstars needed to just plug right into that roster and go be great.
I don't know that they will either. They definitely, the roster is busted as it is right now, as it's constructed right now. Here's what's interesting. Does him leaving Golden State and going to another team tarnish his legacy in your mind? Because, as you said a few minutes ago, he's already done enough. He don't have anything else to prove. He's not in a situation like Kevin Durant was in, where he was having to go team to team to try to get a ring. But having 4 championships, being as dynamic and as impactful on the game as he was, would that hurt his legacy? That's a fantastic question.
I think it only does if he goes there and loses, right?
If he goes to the new team.
Yeah, if he goes to a new team and loses. I mean, how much legacy is there in resurrecting the Charlotte Hornets? None. How much legacy is there in name another team that's on the brink?
On the brink of a championship?
Of irrelevance.
Orlando.
If he goes to Orlando, doesn't do anything for his legacy there. It only does something for his legacy if he can go somewhere and be a big part of the reason why they win a championship. So, like, he has to go there and he has to be great.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I'm pretty much agreeing that it doesn't tarnish the legacy. Trey says Curry should come back home to Charlotte. I would freaking love it. I mean, I would be 110% all in, Diesel, even if it was only for like 2 to 3 years. But imagine, man, like, if Steph Curry signed a 3-year deal with the Charlotte Hornets, I know they still wouldn't be really good, but, man, they would be able to sell tickets like never before. I'd go. I'd be a fan. I mean, who wouldn't have a chance to see Steph Curry if they could go see Steph just an hour up the road? It'd be awesome.
But does the city of Charlotte deserve it?
No,
does the Charlotte Hornets franchise deserve it?
No, they do. Absolutely not. They don't deserve it at all.
Like, if they were a franchise that just bad things just kept happening, even though they were doing all the right things. They got a great ownership group, right? They enjoy a really great standing in the community, and they just couldn't get over the hump. They were that team that was making deep playoff runs year after year after year. I think that would be a phenomenal story for Steph to push them over the top and get them there. But otherwise, I mean, you're really only helping them.
Yeah. JD says, the dynasty is done. Curry may look to move next year if he has that flexibility. I just don't trust the Warriors can put enough around him. And he says, no, it would not tarnish his legacy at all. LeBron had already left twice at this point in Curry's career, I believe. Yeah, I don't think it would. I wanted to ask the question. I don't think it would tarnish it. I think it would, like I said, for the average basketball fan to be awesome because we've never seen Curry in another city. I mean, we love dynasties, and we've talked about this before, Diesel, but man, sometimes you just feel like those kind of things get old. Him, Draymond, and Clay, I'm glad it got broken up. I'm glad one of them got moved. I didn't think it would be Clay. I thought it'd be Draymond that got moved, but I'm glad we have a little parity now to maybe see something interesting.
I saw a meme earlier, Cole, that said we're now in a Big Five league. Like, you're not going to win with a Big Two anymore. You can only win with a Big Five. And that means, you have to have a better team top to bottom. But I wonder, and I hope, does that mean that we're going to see a lot of these great players taking lesser deals to go to teams?
Could be. And
then all the rest of the league kind of gets left behind.
Texter from the 593 says Curry to Phoenix. That would be interesting. You know, that to me, Texter, that might be the definition of ring chasing. Again, Curry doesn't need it. But if you were to tell me he'd go to Phoenix, they're stacked and they have underperformed several years in a row. I know he doesn't need the rings. He already has 4, but that might be the definition of ring chase. That might be the one team that if he were to go there, I'd consider it ring chasing because they are absolutely stacked and they should already have a championship. JD says, I went to see LeBron in Charlotte. I would absolutely hope to go see Curry, but can Curry have Ray Allen longevity knocking down big threes late in career? Trey asks, or says rather, the Hornets have a decent core. Their new coach has championship pedigree, which is true. They have new owners and a lot of first-round picks in the next couple of years from trades. They did get a new coach, and the coach from Boston, who we've talked about, he does have championship pedigree, and that's exactly what they need, Charles Lee. And I think he's a guy that can provide some stability to that franchise because the quack they had in there before Charles Lee was not the answer. And they brought him back and never should have brought him back the second time. But I'd love to see them at least be relevant. That's all I ask for.
Cole, Texter asked earlier, when does the mom and pop bracket start? Well, Texter, maybe we'll do that one tomorrow. Today, we are taking your submissions for your favorite downtowns in the upstate. So we're not thinking of a individual spot in the downtown. We're talking about one. Excuse me. We're talking about the overall total downtown. We're looking for 8. That's what we need to make it into this bracket. 8 downtowns. We've got, I think, 7 submitted now. Interestingly enough, Cole, there's one downtown that has not been nominated, and it blows me away that it hasn't yet. And we're not going to add it in just because we need to fill out this thing, right? Somebody has to nominate it for it to make our summer bracket. When we come back, though, Cole, the ESPYs are going to award the Pat Tillman Award to someone that Pat McAfee doesn't believe deserves it. And I got my issues with Pat McAfee on a lot of things, and it continues with this. That's coming up next right here on the Fan Upstate. The 31st ESPYs are coming up on July 11th. That's next Thursday night.
Glad you
Gonna be
told me.
watching?
I'm glad you told me, because if you didn't tell me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know it happened probably.
Serena Williams is going to host the 31st ESPYs, making her the fourth, I think, ever female to host
I like Serena
the
Williams.
ESPYs. Danica Patrick did it.
Ugh.
Um,
Damn.
a couple other. I
Aaron
don't
Rodgers was one of the females, I
yeah,
believe, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
He counts.
Let's see who else. What other females hosted the ESPYs? It doesn't matter.
I'm a big fan of God, you had me.
You know,
I almost
the
said Danica, but
ESPYs.
Serena.
The ESPYs have had some phenomenal moments. You know, of course, the Stuart Scott speech just before he passed away.
Yeah.
There was the legendary, who was it? The NC State coach, the Jimmy V speech. That was, I believe, at the ESPYs. I mean, there's been some phenomenal moments there. But you're right. I think the award shows, people just have kind of been turned off of the award shows on the whole. So regardless, it's coming up. And every year the ESPYs hand out the Pat Tillman Award. Obviously, as Americans, we all know the sacrifice that Pat Tillman made to serve his country. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal to receive this award. Who's getting it this year? They have already announced who it is. It's not like a category where they come up with an envelope and they surprise you. We already know who it's going to be.
A Steve Harvey moment.
Prince Harry is going to receive the 2024 ESPY for the Pat Tillman Award. I think it's a separate award from this. But the ESPYs ESPN has released this statement ahead of the awards show in honor of his tireless work in making a positive impact for the veteran community through the power of sport. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, will receive the Pat Tillman Award for service, an award given to a person with a strong connection to sports who has served others in a way that echoes the legacy of the former NFL player and U.S. Army Ranger Pat Tillman. But Pat McAfee is freaking out over this. Pat McAfee, who I loved the first time or two, that I saw him on game day. Loved his energy, thought it was a breath of fresh air. I have since soured on Pat McAfee. I think his show is over the top, stupid, and idiotic.
Sour.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous and stupid. Pat McAfee said, quote, a lot of conversation about Pat Tillman's name, American hero. Now there's an award named after him. And there should be, as there should be in the sports world, because that is somebody who is the definition of selfless. It's going to Prince Harry, who I don't even think is a prince anymore. See, why do the ESPYs do this bleep? When you do something like this, you know the immediate reaction from humans and from sports fans and from people with common sense and brains is going to be like, hey, don't be putting our effing guy with that guy. And I'm a little blown away and a little confused by Pat McAfee's outrage on this, because now I'm not saying Prince Harry served the most combat-filled tour or tenure in the military, but Prince Harry served 10 years in the British Armed Forces. He served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan as a forward air controller and Apache helicopter pilot. He said in his memoir that he completed 6 combat missions and has 25 confirmed kills. He founded the Invictus Games Foundation that supports wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women, both active duty and veterans, who are navigating both physical and invisible injuries through sport. And I'm trying to figure out, what is Pat McAfee's beef with this? Does he not like it because Prince Harry is English and Pat Tillman is American, and you can't give an Englishman this award that was named after an American? Is that what it is? It's very surface level, very shallow. Is Pat McAfee referring to Prince Harry, and this is a term that any serviceman in our audience would understand, as a pogue, as a person other than a grunt?
Outer Banks.
Is he calling Harry basically a rear echelon softy who didn't see real service? Because again, I don't know the details of Prince Harry's service, and I don't know if 6 combat missions in 2 tours for an Apache pilot is just basically lip service. Like, hey, let's send him out on the unimportant missions where he's not going to be in a whole lot of danger. But he has 25 confirmed Taliban kills.
Yeah.
Which seems to me like a pretty good number. As a matter of fact, I reached out to a buddy of mine who was a Marine who was deployed in Afghanistan. And he said, in all honesty, 25 kills isn't that bad for 6 missions. I led over 50 combat missions in 1 tour, and I have 0 confirmed kills.
You know what's interesting is the late soldier's mother, Mary Tillman, is also upset about it. She told the Daily Mail that she was not consulted by ESPN on the award decision, which I don't know if she's supposed to be consulted or not. But she says it's a controversial and divisive choice. There are recipients that are far more fitting, says Mary Tillman, again, the late soldier's mother. I haven't seen enough of this. Is there a lot of people who are upset about this?
Well, JD on the stream is upset by this. He said, the only strong connection Harry has to sports is being able to attend literally any and every event that he wants to. Wrong, JD. He founded the Invictus Games.
Well, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. What is it?
I just read off the whole thing about the Invictus Games, like not 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
It's
okay.
essentially
Don't go back.
it's a sports foundation with international competition with wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women, active duty and veterans.
Gotcha.
So it's sports competition for veterans, both wounded, injured, sick, and otherwise. But he says it's that he has no real ties to sports. He founded a sports league. What are you talking about? JD says, I think Pat was looking for an American sports athlete who had done service time. His mother said it was a travesty. It's for American veterans. Nowhere in the description of the award does it say that it's specifically and exclusively for American veterans. It never says that. Doesn't say that at all. So I think Pat McAfee is guilty of a little stolen valor here. I think Pat McAfee is getting real offended for no reason. Again, is he trying to say that 2 tours, couple of combat missions, not a lot? Again, I'm not saying that he had the hardest couple of tours, but he did fly combat missions and he does have confirmed kills against one of our nation's big enemies. Yep. So I got no problem with this whatsoever. And I do have I think Pat is dead wrong here. Dead wrong.
It's interesting. It really is. I haven't read up a ton on it. I'd like to see if there's more outrage because, if it's just Pat, then it's just Pat. But it is interesting for sure. All right, coming up next, we're going to get back to what we led off the show with. We'll almost let it off. We talked to David Hood about it. Your thoughts as well. Clemson saying no to a Black Friday contest between them and South Carolina. We'll get your thoughts next. In case you missed it earlier in the show, the ACC and ESPN, they came to Clemson and said, look, we're going to beg you. We're going to get on our knees. We're going to really insist that you move your home game on Saturday against South Carolina to Friday night, Black Friday. Please move the game. And Clemson, well, they said no. David Hood broke this news earlier today, and if you missed David Hood, we'll have that interview for you in the very next segment. But listen, this request by ACC and ESPN, it did, Diesel, cause a little bit of a rift between Clemson and the ACC, a little bit more of a rift than already was so, as Clemson has said no to playing on Black Friday. I find it very interesting that there are very few Clemson fans that I can find that are actually opposed to Clemson's decision here.
Yeah, I mean, in a school and a program that's so steeped in tradition and doing things the old school way, the right way, in their opinion, I applaud Clemson for making this move. I am shocked that we haven't heard anything from South Carolina. Now, of course, South Carolina is not going to come out with a statement and say, hey, congratulations, Clemson, you made a good move. They're not going to do that, right? They're just going to play whatever date the game is scheduled for. But I do wonder if next year the SEC, or excuse me, ESPN is going to try this again with South Carolina being the host. Are we going to say, okay, every other year when it's in Columbia, are they going to capitulate essentially and play this game on Black Friday? And then when it's the year for Clemson to host, they'll play it on the traditional Saturday.
You'd probably think that South Carolina would say no as well. Again, both have been playing this game at the same time now for so many years. You would think that South Carolina will say no as well. What's interesting is David Hood of Clemson, or excuse me, TigerNet, David put a poll up on Twitter earlier today. You can follow him at @MDavidHood. He said, would you want Clemson and South Carolina to play on Friday night in prime time after Thanksgiving? David, having a lot of Clemson followers, right, being on the Clemson beat, 77% of his poll said no, 23% said yes. The overwhelming majority of Clemson fans here in the upstate do not want that to be moved at all. I am surprised, though, 23%? That might be a little bit more than I thought, Diesel. I thought it might be more like 80-20 or 90-10 on this one.
Yeah, there's been so much conversation over the years that ESPN runs this sport. ESPN tells the leagues and tells the schools what to do. And that may be true for most schools. I'm shocked and surprised and thrilled for Clemson and for Clemson fans.
Yeah.
That Clemson has told them no. How much of this has to do with the ongoing litigation that they find themselves in against the ACC? You know, the ACC is saying, hey, guys, we really need everybody to be team players. We really need you to do what ESPN overlords tell you to do. And Clemson says, no, we're not going to do that. And people act like this is a mandate. This is not a mandate.
Yeah, it's not.
It is a request. They have asked them to make the move. So ESPN will then go down the list and say, okay, what's our next best option? If that happens to be, I don't know, making something up, Penn State Pitt, cool. Let them have that matchup for that day.
You know what's crazy? This rivalry game was played on Thursdays until 1959. David did reference that during his interview. When President John F. Kennedy was shot in 1963, the game was postponed a week and played the following Saturday. From the time the two schools met in 1896 to the 1959 meeting, Clemson and South Carolina played in Columbia during the week of the state fair. The first 57 meetings were played on the third Thursday of every October. And Thanksgiving's later than usual this year and will be observed on November the 28th. So even though this was said no by Clemson, the league and ESPN agreed to several concessions regarding Clemson's future scheduling. Number one, November 23rd game versus Citadel scheduled at noon. Number two, confirmed primetime game for the Friday, November 29th game. Number 3, agreement to switch the scheduled 27 Labor Day Monday conference game featuring Clemson at NC State to a Clemson home game. Limit of 2 road games. Limit of 2 road ACC games in 2024 being played in primetime. And agreement number 5 was that the University of South Carolina would reciprocate with hosting a future Clemson South Carolina game on Black Friday. Those were the concessions, Diesel, that got shut down. How about that? The Gamecocks would also host on Black Friday as well.
Yeah, the concession there about no more than a limit of 2 primetime road games every year. I went back and I looked in previous seasons to see what Clemson was facing year in and year out. How many road primetime games were they playing every year? And it does seem like a lot of schools realize that Clemson coming to town is a draw and that they want to play their games on primetime, but ESPN is the one who decides this, right? So you go back to 2023, they played at Duke at 8:00 on September 4th. That's primetime game number 1. They played at Miami at 8:00. That's primetime game number 2. And then they played at South Carolina, 7:30, primetime game number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Back that up to 2022. Looks like they played at Georgia Tech. They played it at Mercedes-Benz, but that's a home game for Georgia Tech. So there's number 1. They played a primetime game at Boston College. The following week, a primetime game at Florida State. 2 weeks later, they played a primetime, or 3 weeks later, played a primetime game at Notre Dame. So Clemson seems to have a little bit of a beef here that ESPN is scheduling home games, or not scheduling too many home games primetime, but they're scheduling a lot of their road games primetime.
Yeah, and the ACC not happy with this decision. There was an email by Michael Strickland, who is the associate. He's like the right-hand man for the ACC football organization. There was an email sent to Graham Neff, Michael's official title, by the way, Associate Commissioner for Football. He wrote in an email to Graham Neff, "Hey, Graham, as has been indicated to you," he didn't say, "Hey, Graham." I said that. To you
He's
during
the
this
assistant
process.
to the regional manager.
That's right. The conference office is disappointed in Clemson University's lack of cooperation on this matter. As all ACC members know, Graham, it's incumbent upon the ACC and its institutions to work in good faith with ESPN on football scheduling issues. This cooperation maximizes the value of our relationship with our media partner and strengthens our collective future. Clemson's decision not to do so in this instance is harmful towards that goal. With regards, Michael Strickland.
Translation: you guys wouldn't do what we asked you to do.
Is that not ridiculous?
So sad, so pathetic.
They are
the league.
upset about it.
Sellouts is what they are.
Well, the ACC, I guess I get it from the ACC's point of like, hey, we're nothing without ESPN. Maybe we would appreciate it if you guys actually cared a little bit.
But you're also nothing without Clemson and Florida State.
Well, it's true too.
So
true too.
The league itself is, man, they are caught between a rock and hard place. Do you make the TV partners happy, or do you make the schools who give you ratings happy?
And to David's point earlier, Clemson's already suing them.
Right.
So it's not like they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, we'll side with you on this one." I guess this one's kind of like a divorced couple, Diesel, where one side's still having to pay child support, and the person that's paying it is asked a favor, and he's like, "No, you ain't getting no favors. I'm having to pay child support on your rich, spoiled brat, ASS daughter. I'm not paying the child. I'm not going to do any other favors here." That's what Clemson's saying to the ACC. I'm not giving you anything. We're already suing you. We already have a terrible relationship as it is. We're already basically broken up, right? These two are broken up. They are X. Even though Clemson's still in the ACC, this is about as an X of a situation as there's ever been. Clemson's on its way out. Everybody knows that. It's very crystal clear. Florida State probably in that same boat.
The problem is, Cole, too many of these schools have already sold out to the altar of getting on television, right? They'll do whatever ESPN wants them to do. They'll play whenever ESPN tells them to, even if it dramatically negatively affects their ability to sell tickets to their home games. They say, well, isn't it better to get our portion of television rights than it is to sell another 5,000 or 10,000 tickets to a game? I went through this earlier in the show, how playing on Tuesday and Wednesday nights have absolutely crushed MAC game attendance. It's awful. I mean, Akron's down 35% from last year. Last year, they lost 35% of their attendance. And that's not saying much. It's not like they were selling out games. And now they're 65% full rather than, or 75%, 65% full rather than 100% full. That's not the case. Kent State down 30%.
Man.
Now, that's a lot of scratch that the schools are leaving on the table by not selling tickets. And I wish more schools would take this stance and say, hey, look, we're going to schedule our games the way we want to schedule our games, the times that benefit our fan base the most. If that's 3:30, fine. If it's in the South and it's blistering ass hot in the first part of the season, we're going to schedule all night games. You know why? Because it helps our fans. It's good for our fans. It's good for them to be able to come to the games and on rare occasions schedule differently for ESPN. But it seems to be the other way around now. Like, this is the shocking thing to tell ESPN that we're not changing. It used to be the shocking thing to change your game.
Yeah. It's, you know what? Bottom line is, I believe Clemson, to your point, I agree. I believe Clemson made the right decision. I just do think it's fascinating to look at it from a standpoint of, would it really be that big of a detriment? And that's kind of what we talked about when we started talking about this segment at the 3 o'clock hour. We had, was it Bob call in about high school football, and we were talking about other things. I mean, yeah, you might see an attendance drop, but at the end of the day, with it being South Carolina Clemson on Friday night, I'm very curious as to of how much of an attendance drop would you see. I get that high school football games, upper state championships are going on in that same night. People have planned vacations. I believe Thanksgiving's still one of the most traveled holidays of the year. I don't know if everybody's back. I mean, people plan around it being on Saturday now. So I think you would see a little bit of a decline. I just don't know how much it would be.
So if you lost 20% of your fan base because ticket buyers, attendance, because they're watching games on Friday, they're spending times with their family, they're out shopping, whatever it is, 20%. That's 16,000 people at a Clemson game.
It's a big drop.
What's the average ticket to a Clemson game? Just give me a number. 40 bucks?
Oh, any
50 bucks?
I'd say 60.
60?
Yeah.
Okay. You're leaving $972,000 on the table.
Sure. It's a lot of money.
You're leaving almost $1 million in ticket sales.
Yeah.
Just ticket sales on the table. Then you add concessions and merchandise and all that stuff on top of that. Look, I mean,
no, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous precedent to fracture the tradition that we had, even in traditional scheduling, right? Games are always on Saturdays. There was the occasional Thursday night game because nobody else was playing on Thursday. Well, and then everybody wants to play on Thursday. It's the same thing that's happened with week 0, the influx of week 0 in college football. Remember, like, it used to be everybody kicked off on the same day, but the week prior they would always have like an FCS game. That was what would kick things off, and it was usually a really good FCS matchup. We don't get that anymore because, well, guess what? Those conferences have said, oh, there's a lot of ratings to be had on those days. Let's start creeping our schedule forward. That's what happens when the FCS says, okay, well, then we'll move our kickoff up another week. Is the FBS going to do the same thing? Are they going to push their kickoff up another week to gobble up that time? I mean, ESPN is chasing these ratings, and I understand that's their job, right? Is to go get ratings.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm proud of Clemson, and I hope other schools are doing something like this too, pushing back, because it really does have the potential to sully your game day culture, and you may never get that back if you fracture this in this way.
Do you realize how many games on that opening weekend, August 24th through September 2nd, you realize how many games are on Thursday and Friday of that week right now, opening weekend? It's nuts. I mean, Saturday, August 24th, you have 4 games. Delaware State, Hawaii, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Montana State, New Mexico, and SMU, Nevada. On Thursday, August 29th, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22 games.
So now what's the point?
That's unreal.
What's the point in being in a crowd of 22 games?
That's on a Thursday of opening weekend.
Right. I mean, it used to be you played on that Thursday to stand out. Now you're not standing out because
there's
22 other games.
And there's 6 games on Friday, the very next day. I did not realize that this year there were so many games because the next day is Clemson, Georgia, August 31st. Why do we have 22 games on Thursday, August 29th? What is it? Is it TV? Is it scheduling?
Where's ESPN? Where are their executives saying this does nothing for us to have 22 games on?
For example, Wake Forest on August 29th, Diesel, a Thursday night, they host North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, what's the best game on that Thursday? What's
God,
the
don't ask me.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that.
If it's a whole bunch of crap games, what's the point?
Okay, the best games on that Thursday, Coastal versus Jacksonville State, which should be a good game, right?
Okay.
Jacksonville State's not bad.
It's the Battle of the Birds.
North Carolina versus Minnesota.
Ooh, maybe a future Big Ten matchup.
And that's it. I mean, you talk about big. I mean, do you care about Eastern Illinois versus Illinois at 9 o'clock on BTN on Thursday night? I mean, seriously. No. Northwestern State versus Tulsa. Do you care about Southeast Louisiana versus Tulane or Kansas versus Lindenwood? North Dakota. Lindenwood. Never heard of them. Now, I did miss this one. North Dakota State, Colorado.
Good game,
right?
So out of all those, there's like 4 games that maybe have some interest.
God.
Outside of very small regional interest. I'm the Southeastern Louisiana.
I'll be watching Coastal.
why aren't they the SCLSU Mud Dogs? Come on now.
That is nuts. 22 games that night. I mean, that day
yeah, at that point, don't bother. ESPN needs to put their foot down and say, all right, we're going to put on 2 games that day. We're going to put on an early game and a late game. That's it. 2 games. And see, this is what I'm hoping, Cole, going back to what we talked about yesterday. What do we think college football is going to look like in 20 years? I mean, that's to the point of absurdity, right? Scheduling on the first Thursday, it's to the point of absurdity. And hopefully there's going to be somebody looking at this and saying, like, why are we fracturing the audience so much? Wouldn't it be better? I mean, because most of those games are going to be on streaming anyway. So they can kick off whenever the hell they want. They don't have to.
Yeah.
They don't have to go on a Thursday night. So why not push those games to Saturday and just have 2 primetime matchups, an early game and a late game on that Thursday? If you want to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 games each night, fine. Go for it.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 5 days in a row of college football to open the 2024 season.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for tradition. And opening weekend, if you want to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just Thursday, Saturday, I love that. But we don't need 4 straight days of college football.
Make it 5 this year.
Yeah, why not? Why not just go a whole week straight? Why not just play a game every night of the week? Doesn't matter.
Hey, let's do it.
Yeah. When we come back, Cole, we will replay for you that aforementioned interview with David Hood of TigerNet earlier. He broke this story. We go deep into the reasoning on it with David Hood, and you're going to hear that next right here on the Fan Upstate. You know, with as much change as we've seen in college football just over the past year, but especially when you look at it from the past couple of years, it's refreshing to see somebody push back. Tell ESPN, who thinks they control this sport, who should serve at the pleasure of the member institutions that are involved in its contractual rights. Clemson told ESPN, nah, we're not moving the Palmetto Bowl. We're not changing. And to talk about it, we bring on the writer who broke the story, David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. David, how awesome is it to you to see Clemson have the stones to tell ESPN we're not breaking from tradition?
David, you there? You got us? We lost David. David is not.
We
on
did.
the phone
Okay,
anymore.
let's see if we can get David Hood. I was talking to nobody.
I was like,
Wow.
man, I put him on and I hit the button, and guess what? He's not there. Let me try him back.
Let's see if we can get David Hood back on the show. But we're bringing on David Hood. Look him up on Twitter. M. David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. He's the one who broke the story about ESPN wanting to move the Palmetto Bowl to Black Friday, which you got to think, with as many people who are now shopping from home and not going out to stores, that ESPN says, hey, we could take advantage of that, right? We could put a highly viewed game on television and be able to get a lot of viewers as we bring on David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. Unfortunately, David, I don't think you heard my whole first opening spiel there because we lost you on the line. But how awesome is it to see Clemson push back against ESPN, who has basically operated with impunity and changing so much about college football and the scheduling? Isn't it great to see Clemson say, nah, we're not moving this thing?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. And, this is really one of the few times that I have heard about a school pushing back. I mean, Clemson has denied requests before to host Thursday night games. That is obviously a huge problem on campus. So those requests have been pushed back on in the past. But, this one, a Friday, and with all of the other concessions that come with it, it just kind of makes sense that Clemson would push back. And, of course, everything that's going on with, the lawsuit, the litigious nature of the relationship between the league and Clemson. It's just interesting to me. It's fascinating.
David, do you happen to know any of the reasoning? I mean, I know you mentioned the lawsuit there. That probably has a lot to do with it. But do you know any of the reasoning that Clemson said, no, we want to keep this on Saturday?
Well, first of all, Dabo Swinney, and I didn't get this from Dabo or from anybody at Clemson, they kind of declined to make a statement. But in checking around, Dabo has said in the past he doesn't want to play opposite high school games. High school games in South Carolina are huge, and there are high school games that Friday night. And if they were to play this game and then South Carolina reciprocates and they play on a Friday night later, well, then that would probably interfere with high school football too. So that's number one. Number two, I don't think anybody likes that Friday time slot. It's just hard to get ready for. Clemson would rather kind of keep their normal schedule. And then, another part of it is that when it gets to bowl season and now we've got an expanded college football playoff, coaches and players are all missing their families on Christmas for bowl games anyway. A lot of times maybe they will leave on Christmas Day to go to a bowl site, but now you're asking everybody to go into a hotel on Thursday, and so there's no Thanksgiving. I know that, Clemson loves for their players to be able to have kind of a light walkthrough on Thursday of Thanksgiving and then be able to send them home. Players that live too far away to be with their parents can come up, or they can go home with their friends. It's just kind of an opportunity for everybody before the big rivalry game to take a break. And this would allow for no break whatsoever for Thanksgiving and really Christmas either.
David, do you believe any part of this, and how much of this may be schools becoming aware of the potential damage to their brands if they sort of buck from the tradition of Saturday games? Fans may stop coming to games. They may stop tailgating. They may stop going into the games. How much of that do you think is a factor?
Yeah, I don't know that it's a huge factor, but it's a factor. Whenever, back in the day, everybody loved to maybe play on a Thursday because it was the only game in town, right? Oh my gosh, got a Thursday night game this year against NC State. That's fantastic. Then the NFL took that over, and college football had to try and find another night. And Friday games have just been a non-starter. Again, goes up against high school football. I think if you love football, you love high school football. And then you start seeing some of these other leagues, whether it's Group of Five or 1AA, playing on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Friday night. It's like, Alabama doesn't play on Friday night. Georgia doesn't play on Friday night. These bigger schools don't. And it does. It's kind of, you got a Friday night game, man. That stinks, doesn't it? And I do think that schools pay attention to that.
Hey, David, how surprised were you by the statement of Michael Strickland where he basically said, look, ACC's disappointed in Clemson's lack of cooperation. It's incumbent upon the ACCs to work in good faith. Does that surprise you, what Michael said?
It does not, and it kind of goes back again to the relationship between Clemson and the league right now being strained. But that's him saying, hey, guess what? We're really disappointed in you. We're trying to make nice with ESPN. We're trying to do our part, because ESPN, so here's a part of it. ESPN has what you would call a look-in to this media rights deal with the Atlantic Coast Conference next February. And the ACC wants to put their best foot forward. And I don't think it's going to be renegotiated to the betterment of the league, but it could be negotiated down. They could change the terms of the contract. And so the ACC is wanting to do whatever ESPN wants so that when that look-in happens next February, they don't lose even more money. And Clemson refusing to do this for that four-letter network kind of hurts them in their eyes, in their relationship with ESPN.
David, when situations like this arise, when the network sends you a request to move the date of your game, I understand that you're already getting paid by the league to feature the games on their network in general, but is there any other additional compensation, so to speak, other than just being on prime time? Do they say, hey, guess what? We'll throw you another $500,000 or something like that if you're willing to move your game?
Yeah, I have never heard of that. I've never heard of anything like that happening.
That's interesting.
And I think that's why the ACC tried to sweeten the pot with Clemson. Hey, guess what? We're going to move the Citadel game to noon the week before. Clemson has had an issue of road games. Seems like every time Clemson goes on the road, they're the big draw in the ACC. And every time they play on the road, it's at night, right? So we're going to limit you to 2 night games on the road in the ACC. We're going to say that the Labor Day Monday conference game featuring Clemson, would be a Clemson home game. I think that's why they tried to sweeten the pot for that.
David, can you go back to the look-ins that you were talking about that the conference will be doing? We're speaking with David Hood of TigerNet, senior writer for TigerNet. David broke the story earlier today about the Palmetto Bowl and the possibility of of it moving to Black Friday. But what do those look-ins look like from what you know?
Yeah, from a Clemson standpoint, they would almost look at it as not a look-in, but an opt-out, because ESPN does. They have the opportunity in February to opt out of their media rights deal with the ACC. They also have the opportunity to either sweeten the pot. I don't think that's going to happen, or to lower, what their current payout is. And so that's why I think it's so important for the ACC, at least from their standpoint, to kind of not only maintain the status quo, but keep everybody happy. But yeah, this is one of those look-ins. And if ESPN somehow changes the actual, basis of the contract, that would give schools like Clemson or Florida State a chance to opt out and go their own way.
David Hood, find him on Twitter at @MDavidHood. He's a senior writer for TigerNet, joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. David, think big picture here in terms of exposure, potential bumps to recruiting. Do you believe that it's worth it to chase the out-of-state pop-in viewers, which would be kind of the point here of moving this game to when they want to move it to Black Friday, to the detriment of the in-state fans who, like we were talking about earlier, have their tradition of going to games on Friday at high schools and then coming to Saturday college games? Do you think it's worth it? Do they get any real tangible benefit from moving that game to a primetime slot?
I don't think it's worth it at all. And you have to look at the recruiting aspect too. If the game is played on a Friday night, then your recruits, no matter where they're from, if they're from Tennessee or Georgia or North Carolina or South Carolina, they're not going to be able to make it in for that game because they're probably finishing up their high school season. And this is a final chance. This is it. This is your last chance to get recruits on campus for a home game. Moving it to a Friday night makes absolutely no sense, no matter how many eyes you get on it.
Hey, David, you mentioned recruiting, not to completely move away from that conversation about the Black Friday game, but can you give us a recruiting update as we are now in the month of July, only 1 month away from real football happening in college football? Can you give us a little bit of a Clemson recruiting update midsummer?
Well, we're going to have some stories coming out. Clemson still got some targets out there that they're looking at, 26, 25. There have been some misses, especially along the offensive line. I got the word late last week. Hardy Watts, offensive lineman, out of the Northeast. It looked like he was going to go to Wisconsin. That happened. Cortez Mills, wide receiver out of Florida, looks like he's, headed to Oklahoma. And people are always asking, what does that mean? Why is that happening? And I think, sometimes kids just, they don't, it's just not the perfect spot for them. I think NIL is playing a part. And then I think all of this lawsuit stuff is probably playing a part as well. So Clemson with some misses, they're going to have to regroup. Their next big recruiting event is going to be on July 26th. That's the all-in cookout. They got a bunch of 25 guys that they're bringing in. They had that big recruiting weekend at the first weekend of January or of June when they could get guys on campus. And unlike last year when they started to net guys like Sammy Brown, like Bryant Westco, TJ Moore, this one has not produced like last year's did. So the all-in cookout going to be big for this program. Kamar Archie, a linebacker, he is close to making a decision. I think it's going to be a big deal for the Tigers. There's another kid, Dylan Alfred out of Mississippi, was a one-time Ole Miss commit, came to Clemson's camp. Really liked the way that he looked. Tyler Grisham offered him, and I think that, if everything goes right at the all-in cookout, he'll probably commit to the Tigers. But right now, kind of a rough stretch that they're going through, and now all signs are going to kind of point to that all-in cookout at the end of the month.
David, I know that you're covering this story and you broke the story from the Clemson beat, but are you hearing anything at all from the South Carolina side of this refusal to change the date?
I have not heard anything from South Carolina on this.
It's interesting. It just obviously I think the majority of Clemson media and Clemson fans and people in the upstate are on the same side of it, not making sense. But I guess the only other thing I would say is, David, like, to play devil's advocate, and I heard what you said. You care more about what's happening in the stadium than you do in terms of eyes on the television. We were talking about earlier the Egg Bowl that used to be on that night with it being the only game televised. I wonder if this had happened years ago, David, and it were something that Clemson fans were used to by now, if their tune would be any different.
And that's a possibility. Clemson and South Carolina do have that, differentiator in their rivalry. For years, they played the Big Thursday game, which was, I think the third Thursday in October of every year. And then in 1959, they moved it to Saturdays and started alternating between Clemson and Columbia. So there's that history there. And, if you'd maybe done it 10 years ago, maybe, but right now it just doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion.
David, what else is happening around Tigertown? We're looking at your Twitter account right now. There's quite a bit happening with recruiting across the board on multiple different fronts, but what's special out there?
Well, we did a series with Clemson's basketball transfers, which I thought was fantastic. We did video interviews, we being me and Grayson Mann. I think that's been great. Eric Bakich is doing unbelievable work out on the recruiting trail with transfers. And trying to replace a lot of that home run power. Luke Gaffney is a kid who's playing up in the Cape Cod League right now, first baseman, transferred over from Purdue. Colin Priest, guy that came over from Michigan. They've just got some guys that have got power. They just got another, shortstop guy that's out of California, out of the JUCO ranks. He's really adding some firepower into that lineup. I think that's fascinating. And recruiting now really starting to get ramped up on the 26 guys while they try and finish 25. And, the one thing that I'm kind of following on the 25 tack is what's going to happen next with offensive line. They've got 3 guys committed already in Rowan Byrne, Easton Ware, Braden Jacobs. I love all those guys. But they were wanting to add a 4th, maybe even a 5th at some point. And so, when does the next offer go out or who that they have already offered, do they kind of open up that relationship again? So, plenty of stuff to watch right now. It seems like this has probably been the busiest, as I call it, dark territory that I've ever had.
David, great stuff as always, man. We look forward to having you on again soon, and we appreciate your time, brother.
Hey, anytime. Thank you.
That's David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet. Does a terrific job. And David, or Diesel, you said earlier, you can find him on Twitter at David Hood. Is that right?
That's correct.
Didn't want to screw that up there.
Definitely look him up. We had a texter here that says, damn, old Bob was right earlier about the high school games. Yeah. Bob put me in my place. David Hood put me in my place. Dabo seeing the importance of high school games. And David sort of brought it up there to a place that I hadn't considered yet when he said, this is your last chance to get recruits on campus.
Yeah.
And if you play it on a Friday night, you absolutely cannot get any high school recruits anywhere onto your campus unless just so happens to be that they have the last week off as a bye week, and that probably doesn't happen very often. So it would be really stupid of Clemson to give away their last opportunity and easily one of the best environments, top 2 or 3 environments that you're going to have all year long, just so that they can make ESPN happy, just so that the deal that they don't want to be a part of anyway stays sweet for the league.
Something we haven't talked about, and I haven't heard, and if you have, let me know, but if they would have accepted this, would this just be a 1-year deal or every year?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think this ends up being a precedent setter to where this is what it is every year.
So South Carolina Clemson might be the new
Very well
Egg
could.
Bowl.
If South Carolina agreed to it as well, then it could end up being this every year.
See, I think that's where you have to consider.
And that's where it becomes a problem.
Sure.
Texter says, tell me why Clemson refuses to play home games at night. Well, Texter, they don't refuse to play home games at night. They don't play a ton of them. It would, as the fan, it would sure as hell be nice, right? Not to be out there in the sweltering September heat at a noon kickoff. But schools, a lot of times, don't have any choice in that. ESPN tells you what time you're going to kick off. Just in this instance, ESPN said, or Clemson said, no, ESPN, we're not doing what you want.
Not
Bleep you, I won't do what you tell me, to quote Rage Against the Machine.
Not today, says Clemson. I like it too. All right, coming up next, Daily Wires.
Strap in. We're going full throttle. Crip it and rip it, baby. Yeah.
You're going wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive. Play day around Major League Baseball on Monday. Just 3 games are on the schedule. In Toronto, the Astros beat the Blue Jays 3-1. In 10 innings, the Mets cut by the Nationals 9-7 in D.C. A 10-inning affair in Denver, the Rockies beat the Brewers 8-7. Tonight, the Braves start a series at home against the Giants. 6-2 Reynaldo Lopez starts for Atlanta. He's got a 1.70 ERA. The Braves are currently second in the National League East. They're 8 games behind division-leading Philadelphia. Meanwhile, the Giants are currently 4th in the National League West. They're 11 games behind the division-leading Dodgers. The Carolina Hurricanes and Jacob Slavin have agreed to an 8-year contract extension. The defenseman will earn an average of $6.4 million. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo, and save with Progressive. Download the Odyssey app, search the Fan Upstate, and listen anywhere on your phone. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Fan Upstate.
When people have a craving to explore new experience, results, improve page speed and performance, personalized content based on user's location, improve the mobile ordering, increase the 40% increase in new users. That's the way to begin. Give me a multitude of things. ESPN.com, website design, development, digital marketing, and hosting that produce efficiency, and results. American.com, American.com, another example of the best business in the world. Using the best business website, go to American.com. Right now one, as 877, right now one. Welcome here. You're on the gear over the last 100,000 miles. In other words, you're about to you can find in the month to month. We have now. And I'm looking for
Tuesday edition of Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson. He is Diesel. We will be here tomorrow, but then we're going to celebrate with you on the 4th. We won't be here on the 4th, but we will be back on Friday. Putting a little buzz in your cup of coffee, as Diesel has a cup of coffee. I smell it. We call these the Daily, almost did it while you were drinking, Daily Wires.
Bzzz.
Jason Tatum, Boston Celtics have agreed on the largest contract in NBA history. It's a mega deal, 5 years, $314 million extension, $62.8 million a year for Jason Tatum.
I am interested to know how this affects the Celtics cap. Does this force them to move players off of the roster? Are they going to have to offload guys to be able to afford this massive deal?
How do they have a cap after this? I mean, seriously, that's just nuts.
Well, there's multiple layers of going over the cap in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why is there even a cap at all?
Yeah.
Right?
It's ridiculous. It's a lot of money for Jason Tatum. Donovan Mitchell, all-star guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers, also making a little bank, 3-year extension, $150 million total in that extension, player option for 2027, sources told ESPN. The Braves, 30 minutes from now, back in action. I'm feeling good about this tonight.
You should.
Reynaldo Lopez.
That's why you should feel good.
Yeah, their best pitcher. Who thought that would be the case? Reynaldo Lopez is basically a lock. Knock on wood.
Still got a sub-2 ERA. He's lights out.
Fantastic.
He's insanely good.
I'm going to continue to tell you that Reynaldo Lopez is a lock until Reynaldo Lopez proves me otherwise. I mean, you talk about the Braves season and it being so bad, ups and downs, not being consistent, not being able to hit the ball. Well, guess what? Reynaldo Lopez has been a huge bright spot for this team. So
he better get a massive deal next year.
He's going against Hayden Birdsong for the Giants tonight. A little NL East watching. The Phillies are in Chicago facing the Cubs for a 3-game stretch. Shouldn't be much competition for the Phillies.
6-2 on the season, 1.7 ERA, 81 strikeouts on the season, which is tied for 54th. And you'd have to tell me, is being the 54th best pitcher as far as strikeouts go in all of Major League Baseball, and you're gonna think that's 30 teams, 5 starters.
Yeah,
that's 100. That's 180 pitchers. Being 54th, and this probably includes relievers too, but I would doubt that relievers would get enough innings to be really high up on this list. If we're talking just starters, if he's 54th out of 180, that's still pretty good.
Top 5%. Right?
Yeah,
no,
that's top 50%.
Top 50?
Top half.
Yeah.
That's well into the top
50
half.
out of 500.
He's 54. No. If you got a rotation of 5 starting pitchers on each team, times 30 teams, that's 150. Excuse me, I did the math wrong there. 150 pitchers.
I was going to say.
So if he's 54th in strikeouts out of 150 starters, he's just outside the top third of the league, and he is by far from the Braves' ace. So he's not getting the most starts.
David Hood of TigerNet, who you just heard, announced earlier that ACC, ESPN's request for Clemson to move their game back was denied by Clemson. Team USA's Christian Pulisic. I don't see an H. Y'all, these names are ridiculous. I mean, y'all need some simpler names. Christian P. ripped referees following Team USA's exit from the group stage yesterday. John Gruden also lost his bid for the reconsideration of his lawsuit from back in 2021, I believe. Dalton Knecht and Bronny James were introduced as LA Lakers today. JJ Redick said, Rob and I did not give Bronny anything. Bronny has earned this. Bronny has earned this through hard work.
BS.
Bronny said, I feel like I've been given the opportunity to showcase what I can really do because I wasn't given that much of an opportunity at USC. I'm excited to see what's to come for me.
So Bronny knows that he didn't get enough playing time at USC or didn't get to display his talents.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they're saying, well, he worked hard for this.
Yeah.
So what's the truth here? What's the truth? Hey, we got one more show, and then we take a quick break. Again, like you said, we're off on Thursday for the 4th of July. Hope you guys have a safe one. We'll be back to do the show tomorrow. Wire to Wire, episode number, what's coming up tomorrow?
71.
Episode number 71 tomorrow.